An email from a Secret Service counter sniper warns of another possible attack, an assassination attempt on Trump's life, saying that the Secret Service should expect this before November, possibly within the next 30 days. Now, the email wasn't necessarily the counter sniper saying, we have intelligence, this will happen. It's him saying we have failed miserably, we take our jobs very seriously, and we cannot wait because we will likely see another attack before November. It's crazy. Apparently, the agency deleted the email right away. They're not happy. Stuff's being said. There was a hearing today. Hawley and many members of Congress, they were slamming the Secret Service over their failures. And this seems like these hearings, I got to be honest, a big fat waste of time. We're not getting clear answers. We don't know exactly what's going on. And this email is pretty damning. So we'll talk about that. Plus, the news surrounding Venezuela is getting crazy. And there are questions as to whether an election like Venezuela is happening here in November. Could we see similar things? I'm not so sure, but it is interesting. We've got undercover video from James O'Keefe of someone from the DNC saying, yeah, Kamala can't win. At the same time, the Keys prediction, they call it. This guy is leaning towards Kamala Harris winning, and he's gotten, since 1984, every presidential election correct except for Al Gore and Bush, which is contested and strange. But I don't know if I trust this guy. So we'll talk about this. We've got a bunch of other stories. Maybe we'll get into the whole weird thing with J.D. Vance once again. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com to buy coffee. Why? Because it's the best dang coffee you will ever have. And I'm allowed to say that because that's an opinion. Right, Viva?
Yes.
All right. My lawyer clears it. I'm kidding. He's not really my lawyer. But buy Appalachian Nights. It's everybody's favorite. Rise with Roberto Jr., of course. And we've got Alex Stein's Primetime Grind and Ian's Graphene Dream. When you buy Cast Brew, you are supporting the show, and you're also getting a delicious cup of coffee. So I strongly recommend it. Also, head over to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member, because the members-only uncensored show will likely be very fun and very funny tonight. And if you want to join in, you got to go to timcast.com, click Join Us. But also, don't forget, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all of your friends and family. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we got Charlie Spiering.
Charlie Spiering, senior political reporter at the Daily Mail and author of the book Amateur Hour, Kamala Harris in the White House.
And it was really funny because you have this book, Amateur Hour, and Viva Frei was also here, was like, wow, how did you plan for this? How did you know to write it?
Yeah, I was here in January. We promoted it, and I warned there's a very real chance that Kamala Harris could be the next president of the United States. And now it's looking like it's even closer.
Yeah, it would be funny if Trump has to throw away all those 45, 47 hats, because if she gets in before the end of the year, she's 47 and then Trump would be 48. But we got so thanks for hanging out. Should be fun. Viva Frei is also in town.
How's it going, everybody? I was told to never leave a thing blank on the internet, so I'm just going to fill this in right now to state the obvious, people.
They'll still screen grab it.
Oh crap! I'm done.
It'll be white dudes for Harris later on today.
Yeah, Viva Joy. My mother did call me a brat growing up, so maybe it makes sense. Yeah, I guess everybody knows me. Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator. I'm not even a lawyer anymore. So not only am I not your lawyer,
so your advice was bad.
I voluntarily relinquished my Quebec license because it was only serving as a basis to people to file anonymous ethics complaints because they didn't like my tweets.
Oh, that's not good. We got Shane Cashman hanging out.
Good to be back. It's fun to talk about Charlie's horror book about Kamala. I'm the host of Inverted World Live every Sunday, 6 o'clock Eastern. Hannah Claire, what's up?
I'm happy that we're all here together, especially with apparently our soothsayer, the one who can predict the future. You made me laugh because you're like, well, basically I'm on a second book tour now, so this is really working out in your favor. Maybe not the American public.
Did your book jump when this happened?
Definitely. It's now like a 1 week wait over at Amazon. So definitely check out some of these 1 to 3 weeks. So definitely check out some of the other sites.
I wrote a book about Kamala Harris being awful, and then she's the nominee for the Democrats now. It's like, all right, well, that's perfect timing.
Does that make you want to support her because she's really helping your career?
Well, I haven't sunk that low. I don't think my family will allow it. There have been some jokes about how if she becomes president, then the book will sell even more. And if she doesn't, then we're pretty much done. Got to move on to the next one.
Yeah, it would be like writing a book about like Dukakis or something. You know what I mean? Like, people would be like, at the time it mattered. Now when it's brought up, it's like, who?
Well, that was the whole thing. People were like, why are you writing a book about the vice president? And you know, we don't necessarily write books about Al Gore or Dan Quayle.
You know, you should have said.
But usually it's like, well, with Joe Biden's age and his declining health, there's a very real possibility that he'll become the next president of the United States.
I know, and you're right.
He will become
that logic is correct when someone says, why are you writing about Kamala? And you're like, well, look at all these reasons. It would have been better if you were like, I had a vision. A frog spoke to me and told me this is going to happen. And anyway, thank you for hanging out, everybody. This is going to be fun. Let's jump into this first story. We've got this from SCNR. Secret Service sniper warns of another possible assassination attempt within 30 days. Quote, because we should all expect another attempt to happen before November. Now, that's 97 days. I guess technically that's 92 days. But the story goes, a U.S. Secret Service counter-sniper has warned of a potential assassination attempt within the next 30 days. In an email sent on July 29th to the entire uniformed division, the individual strongly denounced the Secret Service handling of the rally in Pennsylvania where a would-be assassin attempted to kill former President Trump. The sniper claimed the man was not intercepted because agents and counter-snipers were forced to do their jobs with their hands tied. Hands tied, huh? I wonder if that was intentional. During the event, the gunman fired multiple shots, this we know. The Secret Service sniper vowed to continue speaking out about the agency's failure until 5 high-level supervisors, one down, are either fired or removed from their current positions. Quote, this agency needs to change, if not now, when? The next assassination attempt in 30 days? Because we all should expect another attempt to happen before November, he wrote. We've exposed our inability to protect our leaders due to our leadership. The technicians who worked on 713 in Butler, PA did their job with their hands tied. Sadly, we have fallen short for years. We just got lucky and look good doing it. I have conveyed these thoughts to not only supervisors, to include the current captain within CS, but those responsible for training us, only to be brushed off as if those with less experience somehow knew more than me. Now, I have to wonder. We have this post. Susan Crabtree, she's a political reporter for Real Clear Politics, and she's posted this. She says the agency quickly deleted the email a knowledgeable source told Real Clear Politics. Full email with name redacted below. If what happened in Butler, PA was intentional, either they pulled back intentionally knowing this guy was coming, saw him sneak in and said, let him do it, someone higher up, or there was direct official involvement in the actions of this individual, they would want to delete this email saying, we failed, it's going to happen again. And if it is going to happen again because they did fail, all the more reason to shut down this communication from a Secret Service counter-sniper warning we should expect another attempt. And whether it's opinion, an educated opinion or whatever, this is someone within the Secret Service who's worked there for some time complaining about what's going on, how it was handled, and that they should expect this again. I imagine this person has information that leads them to believe. Again, let me stress, I'm not saying there's direct intelligence that anyone's reporting this. I'm saying it's a person working in the Secret Service. They're going through their run-of-the-mill daily operations thinking, we may get another attempt before November and we need to be prepared for it.
What you had and what we've witnessed in these congressional hearings, it's a public announcement, an invitation almost. And I'm not saying that to be cynical or every fear hides a wish. What they've displayed by a level of incompetence, if you want to grant them that charitable interpretation of incompetence, is that the idiot today comes up and says, we lacked imagination in understanding that there's people out there who want to kill the president. No. You lack basic common sense to do the most basic thing where you can get a neurotic kid who's never served in law enforcement to say that roof should not be unsecured.
Just to clarify, though, that was a quote from the hearing today. We lacked the imagination.
We were lacking imagination because we didn't understand that we live in a world with bad people. It's so that their job is to anticipate that. But it's been a public announcement to the level of deficiency if you take them at their word, which I don't.
In 2015, someone tried grabbing a gun from a police officer in an attempt to take Trump's life. The idea that they didn't know this could happen is laughably insane.
Especially after the Iranian alleged increased threat. And when I say I don't take them at their word, this wasn't incompetence. This was something far more sinister. And I'll revert back to my notepad here. They've made a public announcement that they're incompetent at best or corrupt at worst, in which case, expect something worse in the next month or two.
Haunting slogan there in that letter. We just got lucky and looked good doing it. That's the sound of a very frustrated agent who's dealing with a lot of bureaucracy, preventing him from doing his job. And he's got a lot to say. I mean, Susan Crabtree is a good reporter. I know her personally. She's very well sourced with the Secret Service. She helped uncover some of the details around that Kamala Harris protective detail agent that sort of went nuts and started attacking her superiors. So that was also just one more sign. And she definitely filed a lot of articles about the whole DEI affecting the Secret Service.
I could imagine that what we're witnessing is the implosion of the deep state. And so I look at something like this, and the question is, with the fervent zealotry in the media about Donald Trump, I think maybe we underestimate the amount of threats to Trump. And it is possible that this was, I think what Buzz Patterson was calling it was intentional incompetence. Is that what we referred to it as?
Last night.
The idea being that there are so many threats to Trump because of what the media does all day, every day, that they need only stand back and stand by. And eventually somebody sneaks in and they just sit there and say, ooh, well, if it happens. I'm of two minds of this. There is a slimmer possibility in my mind, I could be totally wrong, that this is Secret Service is failing. Like you mentioned, the agent going crazy, and this email, the chain of command is breaking. The intelligence agencies are in bedlam because the deep state is in flames. As Brett Weinstein mentioned, they're just winging it now. And maybe something like this happens because they have no idea what's going on anymore. The chain of command is disrupted. We have an incompetency crisis. I believe we have a managerial crisis, partly due to DEI and things like this. And maybe it's just we are worse off than we realize in terms of function of government. At the same time, take everything I just said, but they intentionally want this to happen because they are desperate and winging it and everything's falling apart and it's the only play they have. Either way, I think we are witnessing the deep state, the permanent government, whatever it is breaking apart.
They didn't lack imagination when they wrapped DC in barbed wire for Biden's inauguration. Right? Like they know to expect certain threats against him then. This is a total collapse. And I think it is a managerial problem, incompetence, but there's people behind the scenes allowing nefarious actors to climb through all that.
And I think that's true for a lot of federal agencies, right? I think of it as if you were remodeling an old house and it has linoleum. Well, if you peel off one layer of linoleum, you might get the subfloor, but you might also get 5 other layers of linoleum. A lot of these agencies are comprised of people who were hired or installed during different administrations. So they have different goals, they have different views on this whole thing. And so, again, I'll go back to something I reference all the time, which is, the Saturday after the RNC, I was waiting for my flight and watching CNN, and CNN was reporting that Trump's team had no idea that there was a threat, and that's why they sent him out on stage during the Butler rally, which means that, and I assume Trump's team refers to his Secret Service team, meaning that there is a breakdown of communication with literally one agency that's at one place in Pennsylvania. I can't imagine what the breakdown, whether intentional or not, is like with the agency as it moves around, from Washington to the satellite offices that are across the country. I mean, ultimately, I don't think it's a cooperating agency, and I think there are lots of different people, and you can see it in this sniper's letter, who are frustrated because they devote their lives to what they think is an honorable purpose, only to sort of be misled and abused by whoever's currently calling the shots.
Well, speaking of the lack of imagination, like when I went up to Butler, Pennsylvania, the night of the attempted assassination, and as soon as you get to the site, the number one thing you see is that giant water tower there. And my imagination was like, well, if they had a Secret Service sniper up there, they would have easily seen the threat. Turns out they didn't have anybody on the water tower.
No.
Not to mention a drone or any other things. So.
No, not just that they didn't have a drone. They turned down an offer by the state, SWAT, to
Police.
have a drone. And we say, I like the idea of intentional incompetence. And who was it that told me that, there might be whistleblowers within the agency? I'm joking. It was you, Tim. That they're going to... It was from the convention.
Forward.
But a lot of them.
This email that you're reading, that's a sincere email from someone who does want to do good in an institution where there's deliberate incompetence. And you can imagine the higher up saying, dude, shut the hell up. The disarray that you're complaining about is by design. It's not by accident.
But deliberate incompetence, I don't like that, right? When Buzz said intentional incompetence or the phrase, because if you want something bad to happen, so you deliberately line up the pieces so that it will happen, that's just deliberate. That's just intentional.
It's the appearance of incompetence.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I left the door open. I didn't realize your dog would get out, and that's my analogy. Or, leave something on the floor that the dog's going to eat.
Plausible deniability.
It's deliberate. It cannot be but deliberate. And the guy says we lack imagination, so we turned down a drone offer, which we would have accepted had we gotten it. This was from today, a bait. It is deliberate, and I don't know what more anybody needs to hear before you come to the conclusion it was a deliberate, let it happen on purpose or make it happen on purpose.
I think the Secret Service agent sniper is correct. And before November, there will be another attempt on Trump. I believe that if Donald Trump, on his own, with no security and no Secret Service, decided to go for a walk in New York, his life would be in serious jeopardy. No, one crazy person with Trump derangement syndrome, Trump needs serious security. And for that matter, so does Kamala Harris.
They all do,
So
yeah.
does Joe Biden. They should redouble all of their security, because I'm not trusting of anybody right now.
Well, and you want to go like full black pill conspiracy theory. Kamala Harris might be more at risk from an opportunity perspective. God forbid something happens to Kamala Harris. They get to demonize the right. They get to then say it's too dangerous to have voting in person. We've got to have mass mail-in voting. And then they get to swap out or
Hillary Clinton.
put someone else in who's less popular because they know damn well that Kamala Harris is not popular. As far as I'm concerned, from an opportunistic perspective of a deep state that wants to lock down this election by controlling the means, she would be the bigger target, not Trump.
I worry about a manufactured retaliation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's what they want, because they've already developed this idea, this caricature of the MAGA extremist.
Oh, the MAGA extremist is the guy who tried to shoot Trump. An anti-Semitic, anti-immigrant guy shoots the president Trump, who's called anti-Semitic and anti-immigrant.
Let's bring this up. We have this from NPR. Social media account with extremist comment could be tied to Trump gunman, FBI says. Now, I find this story actually really fascinating, because they're basically saying this guy was anti-Semitic. They say there were over 700 comments posted from this account. Some of these comments, if ultimately attributable to the shooter, appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature. Now, I want to pause right there and say, wow, anti-immigration? Why would they go after Trump? That's the case. But the real issue here is not that the account exists. It's the story, because we've already heard from Gab about law enforcement requesting information on an account they believe to be the shooter, where he was defending Joe Biden as recently as 2.5 to 3 years ago, about 3 years ago. Now we're getting a story that actually was anti-Semitic and anti-immigration. Meanwhile, the other comments were pro-Biden and defensive of their policies. I'll tell you this. You choose. Good luck, everybody. Good luck figuring it out, because I think, as Shane and I were talking about this weekend, they are flooding the zone with crap so that no one can figure out what is going on.
Well, it's like, oh my goodness.
Story alone, it was like the gaming account that was initially linked is no longer, and
they don't even know that this account is. They're flooding the zone with garbage.
But not just that. I mean, if the story turns out to be true, these are comments from 2016 when the kid, from 4 years ago, 2020, when the kid was 16. And talk about flooding the field with crap or poisoning the well. You got Christopher Wray comes out last week saying it might have been shrapnel that hit Trump's ear, and then people ran with that story. Now they're going to run with this, and by the time this gets debunked or whatever, and it's already controlled the narrative.
And just to make sure we hit this point, from the hearings today, FBI deputy director says there's never been a doubt that Trump was hit by a bullet, despite Director Wray spreading shrapnel conspiracy. It is intentional. They are trying to make sure. Let me put it this way. Democrats are going to be like, the head of the FBI said that they don't even know if it was a bullet. And then you're going to be like, no, the deputy director says it was. And they're going to be like, what are you talking about? Then you're going to come out and you're going to be like, we had this story from Gab. The Post was pro-Biden. Are you nuts? We got the FBI saying that the guy was anti-Semitic. He was anti-immigration.
The FBI is not saying, at least Gab is saying, we are a social media company that has been contacted by the FBI in the wake of this event. Here are screenshots of the messages they have requested. What's so frustrating to me about the FBI is, FBI Director Wray says, well, maybe it was just shrapnel from the teleprompter, which has been disproven over and over again. That night, his press person puts out a statement saying, no, it was definitely a bullet that hit Trump. And then now we have the deputy director saying, oh, no, it was never a question.
100%.
There's so much internal disarray to the point where it's like, of course, people call for the ending of all of these agencies. They're not functional.
What did you call it? Reality buffet?
Yeah, it's the buffet of reality. It's the offshoot of my post-reality thing, because anything you want to be true, you can just go find to be true.
Yep.
So, it's like, I think of, I forgot who it was online. They shared an image of someone who died, but it wasn't the wrong person. And they chose that image of the Pawn Stars son because they knew people would recognize that son, but the son who actually died wasn't the one on TV. So then everyone believed that post. And then that post was deleted, and now everyone,
matter.
It's like a Mandela effect happening in real time. People will believe, there was shrapnel, there was a bullet, anything you want.
So where we are now is a liberal will Google search, and if Google's going to send them the sources that they're likely to click on. Mm-hmm. Google's going to say, we're not doing this for politics. The algorithm is sending them what we think they want to see. And what do they want to see? Trump was not shot. Good. And then conservatives. So you're going to be at family dinner. Your liberal aunt's going to come over. She'll be like, he wasn't even shot. It was glass. And you're going to be like, that's not true.
That's when the buffets clash.
You're going to pull up the story and you're going to go, look at this story. And she's going to go, that's fake. I'm going to pull it up. Then she's going to pull up NPR and go, see, and then you're going to be like, good luck proving to your family what's true or what's not. Good luck knowing.
It's well, I forget the intelligence thing is, you can't control what people know. You can only control when they know it. And so you'll have the information eventually crystallized. And in the meantime, as far as I'm concerned, Christopher Wray, for what he said last week, should be fired, because if that's not participating in the event, it's participating in the cover-up and the confusion. And by the way, I got another one here. Disarray.
Ha ha ha! Look at that.
Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, I'm never having a whiteboard again. But it's
I just need everyone to know it was wrapped in plastic and not open when he sat down, so he didn't have to pick up this whiteboard.
Oh, but the compulsion drove me. They're beyond corrupt. This is Christopher Wray giving that narrative feed that he needed to change the story. What they did in 2020, intelligence lied about the Hunter Biden laptop story. They suppressed it when Baker was in Twitter. They're doing the exact same thing, mutatis now. Intelligence is lying, and the internet, or Google and Meta, are censoring.
It actually also reminds me of the Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse's trial, right? There were so many people who believed that he shot 3 black people, and that was never true.
They identified as black, by the way. We now know that.
Oh, okay, sure.
That's not true.
And so when I saw so many social media posts after he was found not guilty of people being like, do not even talk to me about, like, liberals saying, like, don't even talk to me about this. If you think he's not guilty, then I can't, hysteria around this thing that, like, they won't even go back and just read the basic facts of the case. They have decided on the narrative. They have decided this person is guilty, and they're not moving forward.
I started thinking about that when people were watching the Rittenhouse video, and 2 people could watch the same video, walk away with completely different interpretations, and we're watching the same exact video.
Well, apparently the Guardian watched the entire trial, and after the acquittal, said he was acquitted of having killed 3 black men at a BLM protest. I mean, this was years after.
Don't know that you watched the trial. That's the thing, though. Like, there are certain things that are concrete. Like with the Butler rally, the teleprompters weren't broken, so it cannot be this glass shrapnel thing.
Is that a whiteboard or a mirror?
That's what I would look like if I ever turned Hasidic, by the way. Now Tim is going to get accused of a great many things.
Amazing.
It's a picture of Viva.
Amazing.
That's what you look. I was looking at you and I drew it.
I like
you can keep it.
Another whiteboard? No.
That's my whiteboard now.
Sign it and snap.
Let's do shirts for you.
No, but I mean, it's all just, I believe these hearings and the way they behave themselves and their smirks. There was a smirk. The guy Abate today had like a Peter Strzok type smirk. It's to provoke people into doing something stupid because they get so enraged listening to this. Oh, and by the way, there was something, apparently Peter Strzok was paid, settled $1.2 million, got a severance package or something. That came up today. And they were asking who in the FBI approved the $1.2 million settlement for Strzok and $800,000 for his lover there, Lisa Page. The FBI tried to frame Trump. The FBI, with authorization for deadly force, raided his Mar-a-Lago place when they had no reason to do it. They want him dead. And so what I've watched now is confirmation of this in real time.
Well, and think about like the Gretchen Whitmer case, like the kidnapping case, and how involved FBI was with that. There are so many times that the FBI as an agency acts questionably, and it's somehow allowed to just sink back into the shadows.
That's what they're there for.
Working.
That's what they're there for.
Right, but if
to
you
destroy us.
But if you question it, then you're an extremist, right?
I know.
You're a conspiracy theorist.
Let's pull up this story from June. It's from Fox's ex-FBI honcho McCabe says Intel community members scared of being jailed by Trump may flee the country. And so the questions I asked when this went down, and I believe you were there, Viva, was, does Trump derangement syndrome exist? The answer, of course it does. There are people who believe fake things about Trump who are insane and scream at the top of their... There's nothing that will convince them otherwise. 2, do some of these people want Trump to die? This is a fact. We've seen people on the street ask the question and they wish for it. They post about it. They're getting fired for doing these things. And 3, is it possible some of these people work in intelligence and law enforcement? And the answer to that is yes. And with those things all being true, and a story like this, they may flee the country in fear. Is it possible that someone in law enforcement, someone in some federal capacity who hates Donald Trump, who believes the worst things about him, is terrified of going to jail and wants the worst for Trump, may engage in this untoward behavior?
Let's just operate on the purely hypothetical, exaggerated, hyperbolic assumption that there are people within the FBI who would go to jail if their conduct were revealed through some form of investigation. Those people exist, hands down. Klein Smith, who falsified that document that they submitted to a FISA court, that's the tip of the iceberg. So take for granted there are literally people within the FBI who would go to jail if their conduct was exposed.
I would like to.
What would they do to prevent that?
I would like to see the FBI shattered and scattered into the wind, as they say. But I also
think,
as
JFK said,
right before something happened. But I also believe that if that happens, there will be rogue domestic terrorists now that left the FBI, and they're just waiting to perform violence.
So I do want to get into the Venezuela thing in just a second. It is hard to predict how this all plays out, but I want to stress from the previous segment, Secret Service counter sniper writing that they fear another attempt on Trump's life before November. How have we not redoubled, quadrupled for all people under Secret Service protection? We got to fire these people immediately. We've got to go in and you got to brush, like you're brushing the hair to straighten it out, get the knots out. You've got bad people who don't know how to run this ship, whether intentionally or otherwise. There are serious problems, and there's a real threat to the lives of even people we may not politically agree with. And I will stress, all of us here, and I would say every single person watching, wants the best for Kamala Harris. We want her to retire peacefully after she loses, and she can go and dance with Megan Thee Stallion and do whatever it is she's going to do.
Cackle into the sunset.
Absolutely. And Joe Biden can sit in a rocking chair with his grandkids as they're playing his grandkids are probably in their 40s or something.
The grandkids that he acknowledges or the ones that he doesn't? They won't play with him.
I'm just saying,
I'm hanging out in the pool.
I hope that we get a Trump victory. Trump brings us a marginally good administration. It's not going to be dictator, iron fist, Project 2025 Donald Trump, because Project 2025 doesn't even prescribe these things. Donald Trump's going to appoint some moderately bad people. We're going to get some decently good policy. Economy will probably improve a little bit. Border security will be a little bit better. We'll wind down some of these wars, and we'll be marginally satisfied. And I hope that's what we get. We are not going to get Iron Fist Trump going and arresting people. There's not going to be military tribunals. None of that's going to happen. And so I hope
don't really see him throwing agents in jail.
Absolutely not.
I don't really. I mean, McCabe's clearly overreacting because he was also a former agent that was in the crosshairs, and he just got a nice.
He's talking about
deal,
himself.
A nice network deal. He's doing just fine.
Tim, I sent it to you. I mean, former FBI official Peter Strzok reaches $1.2 million settlement with Justice Department over Trump-related texts. Former FBI Special Agent Peter Strzok, he reached a $1.2 million, claims that the department violated his policy. They paid him $1.2 million. This is where it's another act of provocation. They paid him $1.2 million because he said they violated his privacy by revealing the fact that he was talking about an insurance policy against a Trump presidency that he never wanted to see. It's freaking bizarro universe.
Cheadle's going to get a deal after this too. She's going to get some job, some nice.
Maybe a book deal.
Definitely a book deal. Maybe a Netflix deal.
I assume she's going back to what, like Frito-Lay or whatever she was doing before.
Right.
There's a joke in there that I will not make, but she'll get a lifetime supply of Pepsi and Cheetos.
Let's jump to the story from the Post Millennial. From OMG, O'Keefe Media Group. DNC compliance manager says Kamala is weirdly unpopular, won't win in 2024. I like Kamala Harris, but I don't think she'd win this year. This is Joyce how do you pronounce it? DeCerce? No idea.
Sure.
DeCerce?
Let's go Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
In a new undercover video released by O'Keefe Media Group on Tuesday, revealed DNC and Kamala Harris campaign compliance manager, Joyce DeCerce, saying that Harris will not win this year, adding, she's weirdly unpopular. I like Kamala Harris, but I don't think she'd win this year. She's weirdly unpopular. I think a lot of that is racism and misogyny. And the vice president is so easy to attack, right? She doesn't have any accomplishments to speak of because she's vice president. She doesn't make laws. I agree. It's pretty interesting to see that internally at the Kamala Harris campaign, former Biden campaign, and at the DNC, this is not some low-level guy. It's not the highest-level guy, but they're outright admitting what everyone feels. Kamala? She can't win.
By the way, I just went to his Twitter feed. These posts are protected. And the biopic, for anybody who's interested, is he's wearing a face mask. So that tells you a lot of what you need to know. But it's an amazing thing. Weirdly unpopular. Their word of the week is weird. And
is, right?
It's weird that they're using it to describe their adversaries when clearly they're using it internally to describe themselves.
They're trying so hard with the weird thing, and I don't think they know. So they've been tweeting at me like crazy. I can't remember what I posted that Kamala's Project Special K will force women to get abortions, and the military will go and kidnap Hondurans and bring them to America to force them to live in your home. 800
wars.
800 new wars will begin. That means 4 new wars for every country on Earth, and some more than 1. And some more than 4. And I get this wave of responses saying, you're weird, you believe insane things. And I'm like, Like, dude, I don't believe for a second that the Krasensteins think that tweet's real because they tweet at me and I tweet at them all the time. But they're pretending like I'm literally saying there's a real thing called Kamala Project Special K. But the response was that it was like, you're weird. And I'm sitting here being like, y'all don't know who you're dealing with. Like, weird? You want to see weird? I bought a 95-foot tall billboard in Times Square of my rooster. We'll play weird. But this attack, they try it again and again and again, tweeting at everybody, calling them weird. I think it actually works on conservatives. Conservatives are getting so wound up over being called weird that they're doing this troll campaign where all of these leftists and liberals on X are just spam posting at people that you're weird, that's weird, and people are actually freaking out. They're like, I'm not weird, you're weird. Don't call me weird. Here's you weird, and they're posting pictures of Democrats and things like this. And I'm like, bro, I'm weird. I love it.
It's kind of an odd jiu-jitsu, right? It's because like there was that document from the Republicans as soon as Kamala was sort of de facto nominated. There was a talking point from Republicans that they were going to describe Kamala Harris as weird. So they're basically turning it right back on Republicans. Like, you want to call Kamala Harris weird? No, you're weird.
But
and then the childish food fight.
I love
on
middle
social
school.
media.
It's fun to be here.
No, I've literally always taken being called weird because it's happened at least once or twice before. I've always taken it as a compliment because it does mean sort of not within the norm and curious and interesting. It's just the way they're using it now, like a grade school insult, coming from the party that is recording, anal sex in the Senate, flashing fake tranny titties on the White House lawn, Z0 programs, and they're going to turn around and call somebody else weird? Seriously? I mean, first, it is a compliment. It means you're unique. But the people doing it, they're not weird. They're degenerates and hypocrites. But it is, it's funny politics.
I don't care for that line. I'm just like, I'm weird.
Yeah.
I've always been and always will be and endeavor to do so.
You reminded of the deplorables line that Hillary Clinton used against Trump, and everybody proudly embraced the term. We are deplorables. So it's very interesting. Why aren't the Republicans this time being like, yes, we're weirdos. We're weirdos for Trump.
And again, like to Viva's point, who is calling you weird? Like their main candidate for being weird is JD Vance, who's married, successful, and has a family.
And served
like,
in Iraq. I mean,
weird guy. That fellow.
that should have been the retort. If that's weird, I want to be weird.
The response is okay.
I think that's the thing, though.
Next question,
it
I guess.
Doesn't matter what they think, and I think part of it is this is all turning into a very hyper emotional moment. The reality is, Kamala Harris was a progressive prosecutor who did terrible things, and I don't want her to lead the country. I think she's not a good pick. There was a reason that she couldn't secure the Democratic nomination in the first place. So they can say J.D. Vance is weird, and her party can acknowledge that she's weirdly unpopular. I mean, what's telling about this is, like, it's not weird that she's unpopular. She's not likable. She was never popular. But ultimately, like, this is just some sort of narrative storm that we'll get for these 2 weeks. She'll formally be installed. The media thing will move on.
And we're going to continue the march of the celebrities endorsing Harris,
Yeah.
making her cool. She was just down campaigning in Georgia with a big crowd, with a
Megan Thee Stallion twerking on stage. So, but again, like,
we are the establishment. You're the weirdos,
right? And are these the celebrities that you like? Like, do you want to model your life after these people?
You want the?
I don't know.
So here's a clip
and maybe a little more
from The Daily Show that here, we'll play this clip.
so about JD Vance because of how odd he's turned out to be.
I gotta tell
Odd.
Whoa, hold on, like full stop, like what?
It's comedy. It's laughter.
No, but
By
I
the
mean,
way,
like,
interrupt
he said
this
how
every-
how odd he's turned out to be. I'm like, no, seriously, like what? I read the news all day, every day. I read everything.
It looks like he's wearing eyeliner. His deep blue eyes are very weird. I actually find his.
Is that what they're arguing?
I don't know. I don't know.
My point is this. They're not saying anything. And listen to what Jon Stewart says. Let me play this.
boy, did that dude drop a turd on launch. Like, I've never seen
What
anything
the-
like
Listen,
that.
listen, listen.
They were like, one day they were like, the heir to the MAGA fortune and the Prince JD shall march. And he comes out and he's like, I hate cat ladies, you know.
This is like,
of course, the comment was old, and he's.
But hold on, like this is almost on par with Bill Maher being like Jack Prosobic says we endeavor to end democracy. Like Jon Stewart saying that, I'm just kind of like, okay, Oh, I don't. What's odd? A guy criticized cat ladies?
No,
the
I think-
Simpsons made fun of cat ladies for 10 years.
I figured it out. What's weird is that he married an immigrant, and the Democrats are the party of racists. So that flip it around that way. It's weird that he married an immigrant. He's married happily with 2 kids, served in Iraq, had a successful business. That is weird to a bunch of degenerates who demand.
My
Three
point
kids,
is
he's over replacement level.
My point is that there's no substance to this in any way, and it's not even a strong attack, as it were. I mean, they lie about Trump so much. They say Trump said he wants to ban all Muslims from the country, and he called Nazis very fine people. And I'm like, that's a lie. Like, those are egregious. And don't get me wrong, Trump did say early on, he's like, we got to, put a stop on Muslims entering the country until we can figure out what's going on. The very fine people, the Muslim ban, as they called it, was actually 7 countries, which included countries that were not Muslim. And Trump never called white nationalists very fine people. He actually literally denounced them. They will outright lie in the press, run those lies, and I'm like, that's egregious. This time they're like, oh, he's odd, and I'm like, okay.
Well, Trump's team deserves a huge part of the blame, right? Because they weren't there to fill in the gaps. Nobody really knew who J.D. Vance was. So the Democrats leapt at the opportunity to define him as a weirdo and then propose all the other details about him and who he was.
But
and the Trump campaign wasn't filling in the gaps. Even supporters of J.D. Vance were not out there defending him or filling in the gaps or really explaining who this guy was. They just left it a big vacuum.
They're not saying anything. If they came out and said J.D. Vance kicks dogs for fun, I'd be like, wow, that's crazy. What are they talking about? That's weird.
I would call that a little bit more projection from Biden.
All Buttigieg did is go, how odd is he? And then he says, I don't like cat ladies. And I was like, oh, did he?
Tim, did you
And Trump did defend Vance pretty recently. He's like, he loves
last night
family,
on Laura Ingraham,
right?
I think.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
they finally got to it, but that was a week ago when they started this. So.
See, I just think it's because it's sort of weird and irrelevant.
Hard to respond
and these comments are from 2021. Like Vance was on Megyn Kelly's show.
Cat lady.
Right. Like, it's been this weird slow roll of the cat lady thing. At first, they were like, the cat lady.
Widely known.
They're trying to hype it up.
Mitt Romney complained about that.
Then they tried to say, oh, well, he's actually anti-IVF. Remember Kamala Harris's team put out a Happy World IVF Day to everyone but J.D. Vance, but he never attacked. He's also, there are resurfaced comments of him being like, if you can't have family, if you try to, we should have empathy for you. That's very sad. I think you're right. Maybe they should have been more aggressive, but there has been a counter narrative to this the whole time. It's just sort of intense hysteria around trying to make J.D. Vance into some kind of villain, because I think to Viva's point, they can't attack him for his family, so they have to attack him for
Kamala Harris.
Not
right after
Kamala Harris is boring.
Right after the convention, J.D. Vance went shopping with his kids to Walgreens, and that was like a perfect image to display him as a family man. Oh, look, he's out with his kids, and then he just kind of went back in the bunker.
You realize that whole couch thing, the rumor or the joke that he pleasured himself to 2 seats of a couch. You haven't heard that? This required the explanation because there was a couch meme about him looking at a couch and the couch is playing like Barry White music and everyone's like, what the hell is this? There's a rumor. Someone misquoted him from the book as having admitted to having pleasured himself between 2 seats of a couch. It's a lie. Yeah. And yet the left has run with that and memed it, and Mark Hamill has done it. By the way, did you know that even Snopes confirmed that the Fine People hoax was false?
7 years later.
I send this to somebody who's a diehard Democrat, and they say, yes, Snopes got it wrong. And so people, they will believe the lie. I don't think you have to counter their stupidity with much merit. And I don't know how you can own that. Yes, if he's weird, I want to be weird.
But here's the issue. The issue is that conservatives genuinely don't like being called weird, and that was the point of the attack. Not that there was anything actually weird. It's that conservatives are offended by it, and they're trolling and triggering them, and they're riling conservatives up. And honestly, I find it to be quite hilarious watching conservatives on X lose their minds and be like, you call me weird, I'll call you. Here's a picture of you. You can't call me. And I'm just like, I'm weird, bro. I posted a picture of Trump hugging a giant rabbit. It didn't work. So I added storyline. I'm showing you this. I try to keep it as weird as we can.
It's a work of art.
Kamala Harris team
this is my magnum opus.
Confronted you with this.
Oh, I'm so happy. This is my magnum opus, everybody. This is a picture of Trump in Paladin armor hugging a giant rabbit, and it says, "You'll never know want or loneliness again," Trump said. "The world was cruel to you, but you have Trump now." You see, I posted one of these, and it got a couple hundred retweets. And that's usually what happens when I post my AI nonsense. This one has got 4 million views.
You got to write a short story to this now. A
4.3.
children's book.
I think you think you're in the market for a children's book.
Trump and the Giant Rabbit.
A runaway bunny.
I just want to tell you, the response from the left has been like, boy, these MAGA people are weird. Boy, you're all weird. And I was like, guilty as charged. And they're like, that's what a weird person would say. I'm like, my dude, I'm not running for office. If I was ever president, I would abolish Social Security. I'm never going to run for office. You never want to see me run for office. I will say whatever I feel like saying, and you can call me whatever you want. I'm rolling in it, baby. Like, this makes me laugh. I'm busting out laughing to myself, and they're like, you're weird. And I'm like, uh-huh. And there are conservatives who are like, oh, I never.
I think some of it is our terminally online society, though, right? Like right and left, although I think, a lot of left-leaning people tend to be more, especially young voters tend to be even more active online. But, being called weird or having people respond negatively to something you post or say, like, that hurts the psyche for the online person in a way that is upsetting. Whereas, like, if you unplugged and you're like, I don't actually care about any of your opinions, like, whether it's saying you guys are the party that thinks men can be women, so I don't care about your judgment, or just generally said, like, I don't actually know any of you anonymous people who are calling me weird online. Like, it doesn't actually matter.
There's a lot of humorless people on the right-wing Twitter too. Like, you see them retweeting
Right and left.
that Angela character. Everyone thinks like,
I know.
I'm like, that's just a character.
Bel Camino?
Right? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, like that's a character, and everyone's like, this is an example. And
She got 30 million views.
Yeah.
So and we're blowing her cover. People are, like, when I tweeted this, they're like, "Come on, Tim, let it happen." She always posts these things about how she's a bold, childless lib, and it's just her strutting towards the camera and walking away, and conservatives go nuts. And she posted one where she was dancing, and she's like, "This 42-year-old child-free lib is loving life." Conservatives are so mad, and she got 30 million views.
Like a lot of people, I think.
She
really
got
buy
me
into it.
so many times before I could finally determine that it was a parody account. I felt stupid.
Andy Kaufman.
I never got angry. But it's like, is she for real? Because it's like, I don't even, if she's for real, I don't want to pick on her. I feel bad for her. But she's amazing. She's amazing.
Well, it's very interesting that the election is really kind of come down to having kids or not having kids. And
I'm so glad natalism is taking center stage.
Kamala Harris's #1 issue is abortion rights, and that's sort of what this election is coming down to. Are we really going to turn it into a fight between the childless and the
That's why
people?
they want to fight for Supreme Court changes too.
Let's pull this story up. This is from this is the India Times. Not that it is the most reputable source, not to insult India Times, but they've written about this, and this is the Keys predictor. This is what is his name? Alan Lichtman. Alan Lichtman has predicted correctly, they say, every presidential victor since 1984 except for Al Gore. And I think it's actually, to be fair, that was a contested, disputed election that went down to the Supreme Court, so maybe he got it wrong. He's predicting likely a Kamala Harris victory so far. The criteria that he asks, simple true or false questions, are, in his mind, so far, leaning towards Kamala Harris. And I got to be honest, it's a guy who's good at guessing. I think his questions are absurd nonsense, but his intuition must be pretty good to get this many elections correct. So they say the $1 million question before the electorate is who's going to win. Alan Lichtman, who is an election forecaster, the professor that said who said that the key to the White House is with Kamala Harris, is also the Democrats' party's nominee. The prediction, which is made it in the present, blah blah blah. So it's leaning towards Kamala right now. His final prediction won't come until after the DNC. There's the Democrats who are likely to appoint Harris, blah blah blah. The Republicans, they say that she holds 6 keys, including primary contest, short-term economy, long-term economy, policy change, no scandal, no challenge or charisma. This is all utter nonsense. So a lot of people are actually saying, oh, this is brutal. This guy's predicting Kamala Harris. Man, that's bad for Trump. But let's break this down. On the 21st, professor who accurately predicted past elections says Biden can win. I'm going to go ahead and say you're wrong, Alan.
It gets
you were
even
way
worse.
wrong.
Is that the same professor?
Yeah.
It gets even worse.
Dynamite.
On June 30th, I sent you this. I'm just looking
Alan
at this while you
Lichtman?
talk. On June 30th in USA Today, historian who predicted 9 of the last 10 elections results says Democrats shouldn't drop Joe Biden.
I agree with them. They should have kept it.
This is the problem. When you make both A and not A predictions, you can just go back and select whichever one you want and say, "Ha, I got it right." This guy sounds like a
There was
rock.
there was a famous post on Twitter, back when it was Twitter, not X, I'm not dead naming. And it said something like, I can't remember the sporting event, but it was like, football team is going to score the game-winning touchdown against this team in the Super Bowl with this amount of time left with this score. And it was made like a year before. And then it went viral after that happened. And everyone went, holy crap, how did he predict it? How do you think he predicted it?
He made 75 predictions.
He made like 700 posts.
Every possibility.
Of every, like basically looking at the stats and the teams of all the things. And then every time a team got eliminated, he'd delete the post. And then all that was left was like 10 posts about what was going to happen. And then when it went down one way, he deleted everything else. So there was one left and everyone went, how did he do it?
Well, I would go back and want to see the publications that Lichtman put out back 20 years ago. It's a lot easier to burn a piece of paper.
Alan Lichtman, a history professor at American University who has accurately predicted past elections, said in an op-ed on Saturday that President Joe Biden can win against Donald Trump. No, he can't. Your prediction was wrong, sir. But let's pull up
that
the
hurts his record.
Yeah, his record must be bad.
Biden Lichtman can lick by.
This is the keys to the White House. Is a prediction system for determining the outcome of presidential elections in the United States. It was developed by Alan Lichtman and Russian geophysicist Vladimir Kailas-Borak in 1981. It's 13 questions, a checkpoint, that assesses a situation. So what are these? Let's start. Party mandate. After the midterm elections, the incumbent party holds more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives than after the previous midterm elections. So the incumbent party does not hold more seats. So that would be false. No primary contest. There is no serious contest for the incumbent party nomination. Yes, there was. So okay. Incumbent seeking re-election, no third party. All right, let's do this. Let's jump down to the current predictions that he has for Kamala Harris. Party mandate. Does the incumbent party hold the House of Representatives? False. That's an easy true or false, right? No primary contest. True. What are you talking about? RFK Jr. and Dean Phillips, there was an absolute attempt at a primary. They just shut them out. So false. Incumbent seeking re-election.
False.
That one's funny.
No one believes that Kamala Harris was secretly running the country while Joe Biden.
Now look at this. No third party. Likely true. RFK Jr. is polling in double digits. So that's false. Short-term economy. Okay, I mean, this one becomes more subjective. But does anybody, do the polls show people are confident in the economy right now?
No, I just skipped ahead. I'm sorry.
no.
I saw no social unrest. Likely true. What
What?
flipping world is this guy living in?
Hold on. Let's play this game, okay? Here you go. How would you rate the condition of the national economy right now? For all groups, 37% fairly bad, 27% fairly good, 23% fairly bad.
It looks like it's going down.
We're looking at 60% in the bad category. So when we jump over here and they're like, short-term economy is good. Most people are saying the short-term economy is really, really bad. Strong long-term economy. I don't know, again, how you break those apart, but how are these true? It's false and false. Major policy change. To be fair, I probably give that one true because Kamala has no record. No social unrest. There was massive protests and riots and occupations over Israel only a few months ago. So yes, social unrest. No scandal. Are you kidding? Biden just dropped out.
We still have the month of August.
So we're looking at false. No foreign or military
How are we
failure.
defining that part?
False. Israel, Russia, Ukraine. Major foreign or military success. False. There's nothing. Charismatic incumbent. False. Agreed. Uncharismatic challenger. True. Are you nuts? Trump may be one of the most charismatic presidents challenging we've ever seen. The entire thing should be false. Predicting a Donald Trump victory.
Just pumped his fist and said, fight after
This is-
dodging a bullet.
It's not Joe Rogan gets out.
Mark Zuckerberg.
No, Joe Rogan gets out every week practically talking about how Trump is a good stand-up comic in his delivery. I mean, he's
When he walks into UFC, the place erupts.
This is, first of all, I think Lichtman now is full of Schlichtman, and I would like to go back and see. I think he's been lying throughout his career, but it's easy to when you go back and refer to the article where he said any one of things, and 9 out of 10. He's amazing.
As soon as he said Biden could win, they should just be like, yeah, he's gone. Like, your predictions are done because...
Time to go back to the octopus.
Here's the interesting thing. There's no incumbent, right? Incumbent seeking re-election, false. These shouldn't even apply to Kamala Harris, who's an unknown. So, like, you are not dealing with an incumbent versus a challenger. But I love that he put uncharismatic challenger true. Donald Trump, who people can't shut up about.
Except for never Trumpers, right? Never Trumpers are always like, well, he's so brash and he's gross.
so
and
weird. He
just
doesn't
yells,
laugh.
Weird, not Brad. But, so I can understand where, like, obviously this is false, but I can understand where someone who just doesn't like Trump has said, like, no, he's not charismatic because they're deluding themselves. I think the no primary contest is interesting because no one has been allowed to challenge Kamala Harris. I mean, it was really fall in line immediately behind Kamala Harris. She wasn't actually involved in the actual primary.
Installed.
When people were casting ballots, she wasn't on the ticket as the front or as the top of the ticket.
Her polling numbers are pretty good for someone who was just installed at the last minute by party elites.
The polling numbers are nonsense. It's a question of manufacturing consent and not reflecting reality. But I just went to his Twitter feed. His title is Distinguished Professor of History, American University, author of 12 books.
Wow.
This is crazy. It says no third party is turned false when there is a major candidate other than the nominees of the Democrats and the Republicans. RFK Jr. is in the double digits.
But they refuse to acknowledge him as a major candidate. I mean, there's really resistance to acknowledging that he could have an impact on the election.
Do you think he makes it to November?
Yeah, well, he might endorse Trump. I do think it's a possibility. It says for upcoming elections, key fours turn false when a single third-party candidate consistently polls at 10% or more, indicating they're likely to receive 5% or more of the national popular vote. Perhaps because he's running as an independent. Didn't Ross Perot run as an independent?
Ross Perot ran as an independent.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that they're not mentioning RFK Jr. right now. No scandal when there is bipartisan recognition of serious impropriety directly linked to the president. Biden's debate performance was panned by both parties. Look, if this guy's prediction with Kamala Harris turns out to be correct, then it's all fake.
There was no scandal for Obama?
Oh yeah, he was
no
a scandal.
Major scandal
there
where
was
he
no major bipartisan
where he was
this?
directly connected. That
You don't
there
think
was plenty of
what is
Obama
Fast and
scandals,
Furious?
but-
and
The
stuff
Fast
like
and the
that?
Furious, the sicking the IRS on the Tea
Second
Party.
term now?
Those were
But
he was not
bipartisan.
directly
So
connected.
bipartisan. The point
Right.
they're making is that when both parties blame the president for something, both parties have attacked Joe Biden for being mentally incompetent and unfit to the point where he dropped out of the race. Biden could not win. And now perhaps they're saying Kamala.
You do
Kamala's
see,
got no scandal.
Well, House Democrats
see-
joined Republicans in voting to say that Biden and Harris were responsible for the crisis at the border, and I would consider that a pretty big scandal.
Here, let's not manufacture the scandal. Let's just make sure that it materializes. Republicans file impeachment proceedings against Kamala Harris for dereliction of duty at the border and for lying about Joe Biden's fitness for office. She participated in covering up Joe Biden's mental unfitness and knowingly basically planning to steal his 14 million votes. Impeachable. So you can impeach her on two things. She'll never get convicted, but that's a legit scandal.
Scandal where she's directly connected. I think it's weird that Republicans have been trying to make this case that somehow she's guilty for this giant cover-up, but it hasn't really taken root.
Here's what I love. If you look at the civics polling and you choose 18 to 34, 67% are in the bad category. Only 28% of 18 to 34-year-olds think the economy is good. But let's play this. What do you think will happen if I pick Democrat? Anybody?
How would you rate the condition of the national economy right now if you pick Democrat? And then we have to go with those options.
Fairly good.
Say 39% say fairly
Well, you don't
good.
get it, but just like, do you think it'll be, the plurality will be that it's good?
I don't think so.
Or bad?
I don't think so.
Let's find out. Democrats, 49, look at that. Absolutely
Well, it's still not
incredible.
50%. Still not 50%.
But well, that's 49% fairly good and 27% very
22.
good. So 22. So they're at
Oh man, why would they put that underneath?
Yeah. Well, what do you mean? That's what they did. Fairly good and very good. So only 24% of Democrats think the economy is bad right now.
It's because the bounce back from COVID.
What do you think Republicans are going to say? Oh, it's going to be like, dude,
Very
it's so
bad.
bad.
well, you can
Very
average
bad.
it out now that you know the.
Bang. 64. Now let's play this game. If 18 to 34-year-olds are more likely to align with the Republican view of things, I wonder what that says about their leanings this election. And let's jump to independent. Independent voters, of course, they're going to say it's bad. There's no question, because Democrats live in Wally world.
Well, you could imagine.
Just show your friends and family this. Be like, dude, if you're sitting here and you're saying that Kamala Harris is fine, Biden is fine, the economy's doing great, ask yourself why Republicans and independents both agree the economy is bad to large numbers.
I bet you that's the demographics of who statistically is more likely to be a Democrat. It's going to be young people who now see the prospect of student debt loan being forgiven. It's young people who are not necessarily paying taxes out the wazoo or have a family to support. And as you get older, you get more conservative, and then you realize these things really have an impact. So it just might be the demographics. Young people tend to be Democrat and are, totally oblivious to what's actually going on in the
I wish it was broken down to who's a parent and who's not.
You might be able
You and
to.
JD Vance.
Is it the childless cat ladies?
No, or who works for the government?
Well, yeah, that's
Who works for the government and who doesn't?
There may actually be like an advanced internal thing when you sign up for the crosstabs, but let's do men and women. Let's do men and women. What do you think men say about the economy?
Men are going to be more, tend to be very bad, fairly bad, and women fairly good.
Yeah, so 35% of men say it's in the good category, and then you have 37 saying very bad, 25 saying fairly bad. Among women, it's fairly comparable.
Okay.
Fairly comparable. What do you think about racial breakdown? White people say that it is mostly bad. 41 very bad, 24 fairly bad, and only, what do we have, 32 saying it's in the good range. Black or African American think it's actually good right now. Fairly good. That's interesting, because I have to wonder, we know that the Democrats are really worried about losing this vote. It may be that they're intentionally prioritizing the black community with programs trying to earn those votes. Hispanic and Latino think it's actually bad. And other, I appreciate that Asians fall into other, and they think it's bad as well.
Do you have a religion drop tab there?
There's not.
Let's get politically incorrect while we're
There's
at it.
college degrees.
What do the immigrants think?
Postgraduates.
Oh, no, do college degrees, because I guarantee is going to be way skewed in the fairly good, very good.
It's like 50-50.
Nothing like...
It's like 50-50. 33 saying fairly good, 14 very good.
Go to postgraduate.
I am postgraduate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Yeah, postgraduates are fairly split. Seems pretty down the middle. College graduates, looks like they're leaning towards it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And non-college graduates probably going to say it's the apocalypse. Yeah, they say it's really bad. That's interesting. 65 plus, they're having an okay time, but they still think it's mostly bad. Everybody seems to think the economy is bad.
1834. Do 1830. Did we do that already?
Yeah. They think it's bad. Very bad. 67%. So I'm just looking at basically every group except for Black Americans think the economy is very, very bad. How could they claim that the economy is good for Kamala Harris right now, for her to win?
Yeah, that's pretty stunning for good old Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman. Hey,
Probably has like tenure, right? So he's just like, I don't know. It seems fine to me. Like, I don't have to worry about anything.
Let's talk about Venezuela. Not because, to be honest, I care about Venezuela all that much, but we have the story from the New York Times. Street clashes turn deadly as Venezuela's power struggle deepens. The fatal violence comes as both President Nicolas Maduro and the opposition claim victory in the presidential election. More protests were taking place on Tuesday. What is this, a CVS receipt they're holding up?
Maybe that's the cost of groceries. I'm not trying to actually be funny. That looks
probably the election tab, to be completely honest, but it's just so long, I had to assume. At least 16 people, including a soldier, have died, and about 750 more arrested as a result of protests in Venezuela. Election officials declared the nation's autocratic leader Maduro the winner of another 6-year term early Monday, saying he handily beat former diplomat Edmundo Gonzalez. But the government, didn't you say it was Maria the other day?
I did. The opposition leader, they said, was Maria in the Al Jazeera thing.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's the opposition leader, but I thought it was Gonzalez. Yeah. But the government has not released the full results, and many countries, including the U.S., have said the vote was marred by widespread irregularities. So what we're seeing now is, I don't know if I have any tweets pulled up for this one. Oh, yeah, take a look at this. This is from Visegrad. The streets of Caracas packed to the brim with protesters out to support opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. Yeah, that's what you said. During her first major speech since the election. Interesting. Ooh. I never know if these things are real, though.
It could be 3 years ago.
Right. And what is the date on this one? They say it's from today, but Alerta Mundial. It says, the streets of Venezuela overflow to protest against Nicolas Maduro's fraud. So what I see here and why I find it interesting is that there's been some articles written about civil war. I think it was like Rolling Stone wrote one. A bunch of them are writing, and you know what? I should probably pull this up because I think people should. It was Rolling Stone, and I think people should see what they're talking about. Not that I'm saying it's all true and correct or whatever. Let's see if we can get this article pulled up.
Also, after that, pull up the BBC article from 2012 when Venezuela bans private gun ownership. If anybody wants to see what's coming to America under Kamala Harris.
So take a look at Rolling Stone, and here's a quote. This is from, where they said this is George, let's see, Ohio State Senator George Lang was warming up the crowd ahead of a speech from J.D. Vance. Quote, "I'm afraid if we lose this one, it's going to take a civil war to save the country, and it will be saved. It's the greatest experiment in the history of mankind, and if we come down to a civil war, I'm glad we got people like Bikers for Trump on our side." This is a ... so who knows what he actually said. He later wrote that he regretted the mark, which was made in the excitement of the moment on stage. They go through many different people on the right who have talked about whether we're at war or whether there's a civil war. So the reason I think Venezuela is interesting is what happens when there is, indeterminate election. Or at the very least, the way to describe it is no one accepts the result of an election. We're not Venezuela. Venezuela is much, much smaller than the U.S., and we have hyperpolarization and geographic polarization. As I was saying yesterday, there's no way anybody in West Virginia is going to be like, well, I wanted Trump, so I'm going to go drive to New York or D.C. or Philly. They're going to stay where they are, in which case, why would you see clashes?
Right.
However, that being said, you can take a look at what happens. I'm actually thinking that what's happening in Venezuela is more likely to happen if Trump does win. If Trump wins, then liberals in major cities go nuts and riot and smash, tear down posters and lose their minds.
You remember the failed coup, Operation Gideon in 2020 with Venezuela? And we had the private missionary firm from here, from a guy who started in Canada, became an American citizen, and it failed when they hit land. And then that's another one of those things where you don't know what's real or not, because Maduro said it was the CIA, and then his opposition said
he's lying.
Maduro. Right, and it looked like it could be him lying to make it just kind of like a Venezuelan Northwoods.
You look at the failure that is Venezuela, and it's funny when the leftists are like, that's because the CIA is doing it to them. It's like, shut up, dude.
It's like everyone knows the CIA does that stuff, so I think Maduro is like, well, we're going to frame America.
But the idea that I was in Venezuela 10 years ago, and I can tell you that everything they try to do doesn't make any sense. The story I use to exemplify this is trying to buy a cell phone. Because they mandate jobs, because jobs are what give people access to currency, it took like 5 to 6 people to buy a cell phone. Whereas in America, you walk into a T-Mobile and you walk up to one guy and say, I want to get that phone. And they go, okay. And they pull up their tablet and they start swiping. And can I get your ID? And then here's the phone. And then, okay, you swipe here and then we'll fill this out. And it takes like 15 minutes. You sign it. One guy, you're done. In Venezuela, you go to one guy and say, I'd like to buy a cell phone. He says, okay, fill out this form. Okay, now you're going to go to cell phone acquisition. So that's upstairs and around the corner. Then you go to cell phone acquisition and say, here's a list of phones you can buy. And say, okay, I want this one. He goes, okay, here's your ticket for that phone. Now you're going to go to warehouse retrievals. And then you walk over to one guy and he goes, there's your ticket. Thank you. And he walks in the back. He finds the phone. He brings it back out. He says, okay, now you're going to go to purchasing. Then you walk over. And I'm just like, why? And the guy I was with, who's Venezuelan, was like, the government mandates the creation of jobs. So they require all of these companies to have as many jobs as possible, and it doesn't work. It drains the economy. It fails. So this is what Venezuela is. So when you see like this coup stuff and they're like, it's not Maduro. Maduro was on camera giving a speech to his country and he grabs an empanada out of his drawer and eats it. This dude is not competent.
Right.
But anyway, I digress.
You made an interesting point as to where we're most likely to see violence, and it would most certainly be if Trump wins, because you go back to the Summer of Love where you have a convicted felon who likely died of at least drug-contributing overdose, George Floyd, and a summer of riots. You have Donald Trump nearly assassinated live on TV. There wasn't one window broken. Imagine what there would have been had such a thing occurred to Joe Biden. So 1,000% right. I was also just looking up the crime rate in Venezuela, given their gun laws. And I just found an article from Bloomberg talking about how the crime rates actually dropped because of Venezuelan migration. So that's also...
Yeah, but where are they going?
The issue...
Where are the Venezuelans?
The issue to consider is that what we are seeing in Venezuela against Maduro is it's the people against the socialists, but it's the people in the cities. In the United States, people in red rural areas are not going to go out and like as you mentioned, someone tried to kill Trump, not a broken window. When Trump wins, the people will behave like this. They're going to attack their own cities. They're going to riot. There's going to be mass unrest. And then the question is, does it get bad enough to where it could actually destabilize things at a national level. I'm not so sure because each state is effectively one Venezuela. They have to deal with their own internals. Trump could very well just be like, good luck. Your riots in your cities have nothing to do with the federal government, and you have no ability to overturn or change anything at the federal government level. Have a nice day.
Well, Trump supporters certainly aren't going to go rally on the national lawn and then go take a look at the Capitol. The current administration has made it pretty clear that they're not going to stand for that. And
Well, so that's but
Trump supporters going to volunteer to run down to the Capitol to protest.
But that's the interesting thing. The reason why I say it won't look like what's happening in Venezuela is because people in West Virginia aren't going to go to New York or whatever. But you could theoretically see. I mean, we saw January 6th. On one side of the building, you have people rioting, fighting with cops, and attacking. Police and people are being attacked. Cops were they like throwing tear gas or whatever, or flashbangs into the crowd. Just abject chaos. On the other side, they're marching around like tourists with the doors open by police, having no idea what's going on. So I think in the event of a Kamala Harris victory, or let's be real, we don't even know if it's going to be Kamala, you may see something like January 6th. I mean, we already saw January 6th, but that's not going to be widespread chaos in cities. If Trump wins, I think you get Summer of Love times 10.
Well, you had the Women's March in 2016. The day after the inauguration, we woke up and walked out of the building, and there was a massive Women's March that was relatively peaceful. So it's just a question of how angry they are going to be this time. I mean, there was a lot of
Madonna
rage,
did call
but
for
at least
death
it
that
wasn't
day,
violent.
I believe.
Yeah, was that when she said she wanted to blow up the White House?
She did make some weird threats that day. Yeah, it was crazy.
Who was that?
Madonna said,
Oh, Madonna.
yeah, and then she meant that she was saying she wanted to like put them on blast, like
That's
get
right.
get everyone on Twitter talking about it.
Blow it up with love is what she wanted.
No, but she was like, no, like social media blow up, like when you tweet about somebody and then everyone's tweeting at them, and it's like, yeah, nobody believes that. And then especially with what just happened to Donald Trump, especially with what the Secret Service is saying now, this agent being like, hey, we may see something. I don't know. We're on a powder keg. What I'm hoping for, Trump wins. The cities are in control of what like New York do what New York does. Okay, I'm not going to tell New York what to do. West Virginia, we're going to be fine. There's not going to be any riots here. I'm not worried about that. New York's got to deal with New York problems. But I think Trump may just be like, I'm not going to do anything. There's not going to be an insurrection act. There's not going to be National Guard. I'm not going to get involved. States deal with your own problems. That's not the federal government's problem. And then after a month or two, it dies down. Trump starts taking action, and once again, we get a marginal presidency that we're all kind of like, oh, that's okay, I guess.
Yeah, well, a marginal presidency followed by, touchwood, Pupu Canada Hora, 8 years of J.D. Vance, who might have some more transformative elements.
No way. J.D. Vance is going to be, first of all, the idea that we get a Republican Trump and then J.D. Vance wins twice again and we get 12 years, it's very unlikely because people adapt to their circumstance. So even if things are good, people will, depending on what the sentiment is nationally, you could have a good economy, but if people feel like, let's say in the first 3 years, the economy goes up, and then in the last year, the economy dips a little bit. Now people are feeling like they're losing, you get a shift. So I just don't believe that Trump, Vance, and the Republicans are going to march in with this mandate for leadership and be like, we are overhauling anything. No, they're going to go in and they're going to be like, I'd like to appoint this person. Democrats are going to be like, no, and they go, oh.
I don't know. I'm anticipating mass deportations if Trump actually gets in. I mean, and I say mass deportations not in the order of tens of millions, but beginning with objective criteria of criminals or criminality.
I don't believe Trump will be the wrecking ball he's promising.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, but I think
And he's only got 4 years to do it. He's not like he's.
I don't think we see mass deportations. I think we see deportations.
Yeah, okay. The question of mass might be the qualification, but I do think we see deportations. I think we see that, and I think at some point it does get bad enough that even the Democrats will say Trump wasn't all that bad. We're going to maybe go back and revisit 2016 to 2020. It wasn't that disastrous until 2020, and I think other people have roles to play in that. But the nightmare that they fear when they get into the reality won't be as bad as they thought it was, and they might actually see that things will, I don't know, stabilize.
I can see that. I can actually see Trump on Colbert at some point, like a big turnaround, because they're going to be so desperate.
Wasn't he already on Colbert?
Well, yeah, I mean, but that was pre everything,
right? You know, when they were trying to.
He was on Fallon. Fallon did the hair thing, and then Fallon got.
He wasn't on Colbert. It was Fallon.
He might have been on Colbert at some point, but yeah, I see that happening at some point. If he gets elected, and there's it could be a turnaround.
I actually think this is kind of telling because I'm thinking of John Tester's Senate race in Montana, and this is, one of these contentious races where they're saying Montana is effectively a red state. It's got
Tester always wins somehow.
Tester always wins, and he held off on endorsing I don't know if I haven't checked today if he's done it, but for a while he wasn't saying anything about Kamala Harris until I think you'll see the emergence of a class of Democrats that are sort of more in line with maybe Joe Manchin, who are sort of saying like, we're not like those progressives. Like, we have more shared values. And so then when things get, presumably get better economically under Trump, they are more easily able to say, like, look, I voted for some of those policies. My record isn't like that. I'm thinking of the Democrats who just voted against Kamala Harris in this House resolution on immigration, right? There are people who are starting to say, like, we're parting ways with the Biden-Harris administration. Yep. And so you might see people who posture more moderately and have success with Democratic voters in a way that this progressive wing is starting to see, it just isn't working.
I want to jump to this story from the Wall Street Journal. America's new political war pits young men against young women. A majority of men under 30 support Trump and Republican control of Congress, a sharp reversal from the 2020 race. Young women strongly favor Democrats. We'll pull this up. This is from America 2100. Will young men vote Democratic in 2024? Percentage identifying as Republican. In 2023, 49% of young men identified as Republican.
What was the age of the young men?
It didn't say.
Okay.
And then we have this here. This is, of course, what many people have seen. This is an old survey. 12th grade girls, overwhelmingly liberal, very few conservative. But for boys, it's inverted, overwhelmingly conservative. And then we have this from the Wall Street Journal, AP Votecast, showing that young men overwhelmingly lean Republican and women lean Democrat. So much less women Democrats, much more male Republicans, and men favor Trump and women favor Biden. I think that, I've said this before, and I welcome the ire from the feminists. This will not play out well for women, and men lead, and it doesn't matter what these women want or think. And the issue is strongly that men can wait as long as they want to have families. And so what's going to happen for a lot of these women, not all of them, and maybe even not a majority of them, but enough women are going to be approaching 35 with their doctors telling them having a child at 35 is considered a geriatric pregnancy, and you are at risk. You need to consider that you're getting too old for this. And these women are going to be like, oh no. And the men are going to be told by their doctors, looks good, mate. Have a nice day. Come back when you're 40. So these young men and these women, they go on dates. And the woman's going to say something like Kamala Harris or whatever. And the guy's going to be like, not interested. I'm sorry. Look, I'm looking to have a family. I want to have kids. I want to buy a house and find someone that I'm going to be with. I'm not really interested in being with someone who holds these values that I think are detrimental to raising children. More importantly, a 35-year-old guy is going to be talking to a 28-year-old woman. And a 35-year-old woman is going to be trying to talk to a 35-year-old guy, and they're going to say, not interested. Guys, and I know the feminists, they get really mad about this one, and the left says, Tim's sexist. I'm like, okay, well, do whatever you want to do. I'm just telling you what the data shows. So this, I think, ultimately lends itself to more and more women are going to be childless. Men will be selective, but this will result in more conservative children, like we're already seeing, and then give it 20 to 40 years, and the Chelsea Handlers of the world will be alone and isolated from culture. It takes only a small percentage shift culturally for the entire surface of culture to appear one political ideology.
What happens when these women get artificial wombs and they don't need men anymore? It's just a bunch of single mothers with babies.
They're going to struggle to. It's same issue. It's going to be substantially easier for young men and conservative women to have families because the dad working and the mom raising the kid, and the mom does work too, but just, less so while she's having the kid, versus women trying to maintain birthing pods. If artificial wombs even come to market in the next 10 to 20 years, surrogacy is going to be out of reach. And many of these people just don't want kids at all. Yeah. So here's what I see happening based on the trends right now. And this is not accounting for variables. Chelsea Handler is coming out being like, I'm 50 years old and I can do drugs and wake up in the morning. And
as if that's the measure of happiness.
Well, but that's fine for her. That's fine for her. The point is, when 20 years from now, someone born today, what are they likely to be? Conservative or liberal? The answer is plainly conservative, based on birthing fertility rates among conservative versus liberals, based on trends among young people. If the next generation leans even 5% more conservative, the market shall provide. And so this woke stuff won't play because they're not going to get memberships and they're going to adapt to what the market wants. Chelsea Handler will find herself posting into the wind on social media, and people are going to be like, look, what you're saying is annoying and offensive, and it's not appealing to our customer base. She will be 70 years old being like, how did I lose touch with society? Why am I the odd person out? If 55% of this country says we want patriot content, then these companies like Disney, they just go, for every $100 we spend, how much do we make if we do liberal stuff? You might make $30. What if we do conservative stuff? 31? They'll go, okay, go conservative. You make more money.
I don't believe these statistics in general. I mean, I find that they are sort of not self-fulfilling, but self-propagating. They put these out to try to rationalize what they want to see in the market. But let's assume that it's accurate. I try to understand what is the brain pattern that results in women being democratic. Is it just the one litmus test of abortion that's become such a prevalent question that they engage in what is basically what Gad Saad refers to as like suicidal empathy? Like that, it's so important on that one particular issue. They will sacrifice the rest of their country through open immigration, through foreign wars. Like I try to reconcile the idea that they're empathetic, so it's based on empathy, and yet they support endless foreign conflict, which is the sort of, maybe that's uniparty but Democrat policy right now. The litmus test, the abortion is so important that's what young women.
It's that women are more susceptible to social pressures than men. That's it.
That's sexist, Tim.
I'm not.
It's true, right?
So
I'm joking. I don't know.
It is scientifically proven that women are more agreeable than men. Men are hard-headed and make decisions about what they want. Women are more agreeable and willing to work with the group. This makes total sense when you look at evolutionary biology. So what does it result in? Women are more likely to look at the dominant narrative from the media and say, it's better to just, fit in. And men are more likely to be like, no, I'm right and I'm going to do what I want. And most guys are wrong and crash and burn in economy or otherwise. But most women tend to be more average and aligned to the center. This is akin to the greater male variability hypothesis.
Well, you also have to consider immigration in your formula, because we do have millions of people crossing the border, millions of immigrants who want to stay and probably will stay. So that definitely shakes up the formula.
I disagree completely. I don't think that changes the tendencies between men and women. It'll have an impact culturally for sure, but it still results in very similar things. If anything, I actually think that would be more detrimental to the left. The right likes to make the point that illegal immigrants, when they're granted citizenship, or new citizens tend to vote Democrat in their first time around or whatever. I don't think that changes the argument around liberals don't have kids and conservatives do. You can say we're gonna have X amount of immigration, but how many immigrants are conservative versus how many are liberal? How many are religious versus how many are not? That's not being factored in. So I think mostly it's a moot point. And the question actually is, when you look at voting patterns, which includes immigration, liberals are having substantially less kids than conservatives and have been for 20 years, and that trend has only been exacerbated as fertility declines.
Right. You see that argument made by some people who refer to Israel, how Israel used to be pretty middle of the road, but now they're growing even harder right because the conservative Jews are having more kids than the liberal Jews.
Yep. That's it.
So how long does it take?
But I think you're right that immigration was marketed to women as an empathetic thing. I think you're both picking up on this, because it's like, what did Biden come out and say? He said, we're going to grant a pathway to citizenship to people who are illegal immigrants who are married to a citizen, who've been, most of them have been here for 25 years. It's emotional. They're saying we have to be nice and we can't disrupt their lives, and never mind the fact that there are cons to illegal immigration. Don't talk about that. It's people fleeing destabilized countries. You have to let them in. We have to do something. Well, there's a reason it's called amnesty, right? Like it's sold to women as a humanitarian act, and women are susceptible to that. And I think that's one of the challenges of all of these issues, which is that men, I think, still feel a certain traditional pressure to do masculine things, to like provide for their families, to have children. Women are told to ignore a lot of their biological instincts, don't have children, delay having them, don't settle down. And so they're actually functioning very differently in society. You should look at, South Korea is a good example of this. They had a similar narrative going on during their last presidential election, where it was the conservative candidate supported by young men and young women supported the more progressive candidate, because they ultimately don't have the same goals anymore. It's not like everyone is trying to line up and achieve the same thing.
So to your point, 20 years ago, we were looking at, I bring this point up a lot, so I know people have heard it, but for those that haven't, liberals were having 1.43 kids, conservatives were having 2.05. Fast forward 20 years. Pew Research tracks the first time in 100 years that a generation has moved slightly more conservative on some issues. Traditionally, it was always a wave of this generation is 10% progressive, then 30, then 50, then 60, and then Gen Z.
Bill Clinton rocked the vote.
Then Gen Z comes around, and all of a sudden, they are comparable. For the first time, on average, Gen Z and millennials are comparable politics, but in some areas, Gen Z is actually slightly more conservative. Now, when this story first came out, Pew Research, I think it was from 2018, everybody on the right is going like, whoa, we're winning the argument with young people. I'm like, no, you're not. Conservatives had more kids 20 years ago. That means there is just generally more conservative children who hold these views their parents gave them. The right makes the argument that the left is trying to indoctrinate in schools, which is true, but the right is also at war on that issue as well. So I'd say that's a moot point. Give it 20 more years, and you're going to see the country skew a few percentage points towards conservative. And at that point, dominant culture, the pressures will exist. There will be a market for progressivism, but it will be a minority market. Stadiums, Coca-Cola, whatever. They're going to say, what's our lowest common denominator marketing strategy to maximize sales? And they're going to say 55% of people identify as American-loving conservative patriots and 45 say other. And they go, okay, we'll go with the 55. We make more money.
That's it. It is interesting. And the going along to get along aspect of women or being more influenced by social media or those types of pressures would also explain why self-harm ideations on social media resulting from Instagram or whatever affects disproportionately or significantly more girls than boys. That's interesting. I hadn't actually thought about the demographic shift. I'm trying to apply this, although that's like my anecdotal experience. The family members that I have who have kids who are conservative-ish versus liberal, progressive-ish, I'm noticing the gender issue, but I also thought it was more of the Andrew Tate influence. I can certainly see how...
people are talking about why are kids listening to Andrew Tate? And I've heard this from parents where they're like, my young teenage kids were watching Andrew Tate the other day. And I'm like, you're like a conservative leading family. You're not liberals. And, also it's entirely possible that liberal families become overbearing and the kids rebel or whatever. But ultimately, liberals infinitely more likely to have abortions than conservatives. Like, not literally infinitely, but like just substantially more. And conservatives just have more kids in general. So when you look at the fertility rate 20 years ago, I wonder if the fertility rates right now are taking into consideration abortion. I mean, probably they're just looking at how many children do liberals have. So that includes that liberals are just having tons of abortions.
And yet the child replacement rate is still pretty significant low and dropping even further.
For conservatives, I think it's like 1.8 fertility. And for liberals, it's like 1.
Something I've noticed, I wonder if you guys
less.
notice with your families, that a lot of liberal areas, if you're traveling through them, are anti-family. Like they just feel like kids aren't welcome.
Well, super pro dog.
Yeah. Super pro dog.
Or cat.
Super pro babies. Fur babies.
Fur babies.
I hate that phrase.
I mentioned this several times. I was flying through Chicago and the family restrooms have been turned into all gender bathrooms.
Yep.
And I'm looking at this. There's like a men's room and a women's room, and right in the middle it says all gender. And I'm like, I know for a fact that bathroom's always been there. I used to work at O'Hare. They didn't build a third bathroom to accommodate, agender people. It used to be the family restroom with the baby changing station. And they just said, demand is not for baby changing stations. It's for gender ideology in Chicago. So they switched it.
And there's baby changing tables in both men and women.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I changed a lot of diapers when my kids were born.
And I did too.
This is why they had family bathrooms.
Even
also,
when I had to put them on the sink.
And also one thing we mentioned too is McDonald's used to have a play place.
Yeah.
Like that's all going away.
Now McDonald's
this
are
family
like
oriented.
brutalist
It is.
terrible places.
Well, the employee list McDonald's where you go and you
Yeah.
place your order on the screen and then go pick it up. It's the scariest thing I've ever seen. And I saw one in a downtown Toronto at night.
Imagine if there was just one clown there.
There's a freaking LCD screen. You go and there's like one person behind the counter and I guess the people manually putting in, but there's no human interaction anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And
And
there's like-
the Taco Bell down the street is exactly that.
I mean, I don't like it, but also when your order gets screwed up, it makes it very difficult. And
no accountability.
But
robots
the
have no
other thing is,
accountability.
don't go into a McDonald's late at night in Toronto. Holy hell, did I think I was going to die?
There's already a video of someone ordering a McDonald's and a robot arm makes everything. There's people working there, but the robot arm goes over and then it like reaches down and scoops the fries and then moves them over. At the Taco Bell down the street over here, if you go in, there's kiosks and there's people working behind the counter. And you can walk up to the counter and wait if you want, but why would you? You go to the kiosk and you go boop, 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 enter, and then you watch them make it. That's the future. But, more to the point, going back to what I was saying is that, like Jack Posobiec mentions with Pizza Hut nationalism, even fast food restaurants used to be family-oriented because the market demanded that people accommodate children. Because they're like, look, am I going to come to eat at your place? I got kids. So McDonald's says, build a playground in our fast food restaurants. Now they don't need it anymore. They got rid of it.
Yeah, Pizza Hut used to be a tradition in my family and other families in my area. It was like that was part of your weekend night of going Pizza Hut, then movie.
Living large.
It was great,
Right.
man.
That was living large, dude. Those red plastic cups, man. It was
But here's the Jack Posobiec talks about it, and it's fascinating. Jack remembers after school, and it's like book it, and you did well, and it's like we're gonna go get your personal pizza. I always thought it was really funny that you get the book it thing, and then if you like read the book, they give you the free pizza on the wheel because my parents would just buy pizza and I'd eat. If my parents ordered a
Didn't
pizza,
get your personal pan pizza?
I would. My point is, whether I read the book or not, I was eating pizza. But once you got the thing, then you were like, let's go to pizza. And I get that little pizza. Jack wants what he had when he was a kid, and he wants to share with his kids. But because the fertility rate has gone way down and the market dictates, there's no opportunity for him to do that anymore.
I always thought the playground issue was liability and hygiene. So I never even thought of that. But we had one at McDonald's on DeCarry in Montreal, and I used to take the kids.
The market shall provide. If the cost of lawsuits and hygiene is less than the amount they make from having the family opportunity, they keep the playground. So they could say, look, it's $1 million a year in liability, but we make $2 million from families who bring their kids in. So pay the cost, take the $1 million profit. At some point, they said liability fixed cost is $1 million, but we're only pulling in $800,000 from families. Get rid of it.
Some of this is so funny to hear you guys talk about because, we didn't grow up that far apart from each other, but, I grew up in a rural area in Connecticut and there was a McDonald's, but it was like a drive to get there, right? Like we didn't go often. It didn't have a place. I can't think of where the closest Pizza Hut was. I never saw it growing up, but there were local pizza places. Like there wasn't the book it, but the local library had a huge summer reading program. And so it's interesting to see like the idea that, obviously it's true. Corporations did what they could to be a part of culture and they drop stuff off, whether it's cost or people aren't interested in them. But also like all of these things that people want probably still exist. They're just not in the sort of one-stop
Hyperlocal.
shop.
Right. I still remember growing up in Wyoming, the first day that a McDonald's was built in our hometown. So it was a pretty radical change, even though we had a Pizza Hut the whole time.
were there protests?
I also think the internet's
I was right next to
I
high
think,
school, so they were happy.
I think the major problem we have is mobile internet. Internet's always been fine. I've had the internet since I was a little kid, as long as I can remember there was internet. And it was a useful resource, but only when you were at home. You have to sit at the machine and use it. And then around 2007, 2008, mobile internet happened. And man, I remember skating at Wilson Skate Park in Chicago in like 2005, and I have no idea what's happening in the world. I had a candy bar phone. I could receive texts. My friends would say, "Where yet?" And I'd be skating. I'd go home, go on the computer, and then start reading what was going on. And then there was like over a year, all of a sudden, smartphones, touchscreen, the iPhone. Now the internet was 24/7. No matter where you were, you knew exactly what was happening. And it just exponentially skyrocketed. All of a sudden now you are wired into the machine 24/7.
I had no internet until I was like 20. Like I didn't have a computer.
Yeah, we're kind of a rare generation.
Oh, dude.
Or
When
we can remember a time without the internet.
Oh yeah.
When I was 7, it was whoever wakes up first gets on the computer, because here's how it worked. The rule in my house was you're allowed to go on the computer for 1 hour and then you have to let brother or sister, my brother or sister use it next. So as soon as I got any conscious thought, it's wake up, bolt straight to the computer, and then go on to get on the internet. And then as soon as my brother would come in, I'd be on for like 45 minutes. He'd be like, how long have you been on? I'd be like 5 minutes.
Yeah, of course.
In another hour, like
Are
as
you
soon as
gaming
Enough
or-
time to download a song.
everything, right? Downloading songs took like 5 hours, 6 hours.
Right.
If we even had them. I mean, I'm like 7. I'm on AOL and I'm downloading games. So always just trying to find, like, AOL was crazy, trying to find different games that were available for DOS or whatever. Wow. And then playing them. And then I had, we had click and play stuff. So I got click and play, then I got Games Factory, then Multimedia Fusion and Flash 4. And then I'm making websites, I'm making video games, but only for an hour.
Very
and then you got to let
Tim.
Oh yeah. This is
I think I downloaded a movie trailer once successfully.
Well, back then I don't know that you actually could. It was a crazy moment. I remember me and my friend were at his house and we were trying to watch Dragon Ball Z on Real Player Live at
Real
like
Player.
40p. Like you couldn't even see anything and it was buffering. Every 10 seconds of buffering would give you 1 second to video. And we were just sitting with this tiny little thing on the screen to watch Dragon Ball Z. And we were like, yes.
I remember going to a friend's house and watching him play Doom, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And that was it. And then I went home and I just had a farm.
You never got
and
to play?
shovels.
Winamp.
You
Winamp.
could only watch.
No, I had nothing.
Who remembers that? You remember Winamp? Did you have that?
Yeah,
Yes, I remember Winamp.
I'm older. I think older than everybody here. I don't ever remember 45. Huh. And I don't remember not being connected. I got my first email address in '96, and it was Roadrunner Dave at Yahoo.
Oh, so you were late.
Yeah, but
I hope people still email you there.
Is that because
Oh,
you were in
go ahead, but-
Wait, where did you grow up again?
in Montreal. But
Canada?
The
Okay.
thing is, I always felt like I was always connected in the same way. Like the internet's one thing. I just like having a video recording device, and I've always been into that. So I don't mind being connected this way. Wherever you are, you can upload a video. And
It's pronounced Montreal.
it depends. I get in trouble. Apparently, I don't pronounce. It's Montreal or Montreal, and I go with the apparently the wrong way.
How do you say it? Like how do the French? When I went there,
Montreal is how they say
exactly
it.
Montreal. I anglicize it in Montreal.
So you're already the home of Kamala Harris. So.
Oh, yeah, no, she went to school up the street
Right,
from me. Like
right.
I was raised
It's
in
a
West
very
Ham.
nice neighborhood, from what I understand.
She's as Canadian as I am, and I think I'm more American than she is what I like
This
to say.
guy.
Someone's going to put together a montage like the unburdened Viva saying he's more American than Kamala. But
Did you used to go with your friends to Dépanneur to?
Dépanneur, of course. Dépanneur in French is the word for dépanner, is to figure something out with minimal resources. So
Is that what that means?
Yeah, dépanneur. Dépanner.
So that's how they refer to like.
You go to a dépanneur to get whatever you need because it was sort of like,
Yeah.
oh, you're missing something. On va
It's great.
dépanner.
In New York, they call them bodegas. In Chicago, we called them corner stores.
Yeah, we have
Corner store.
bodegas. Yeah.
Go to the corner store, and then New York, it was like the bodega. And the first time I went there, I was like, the what?
Bodegas.
And then I went to a bodega, and I said, I want to get a roast beef sub, and they went, a what? And I was like, a roast beef sub sandwich, like that. And I pointed to the hero roll. I'm like, that's a hero. And I was like, man,
Culture
didn't
shock.
realize people
Chicago
spoke-
boy.
Whole language.
It is kind of crazy though. I just didn't realize that different languages. And then I asked the guy for jardinera, and he went, "What?" And then
I don't even know what that is.
I had a panic attack. I was like, "I can't get jardinera." You got to go to Potbellies though, because they're everywhere and they have it. But they don't know what jardinera is either. They call it hot peppers.
Never got food from bodegas. You go there for vanilla Dutches, which is for bad things I don't do anymore. No food at our bodegas. You couldn't trust it there.
What the heck is a vanilla Dutch? I'm
Vanilla
asking.
Dutch.
What a fun cultural hour we're having.
Yeah, you know.
For blunts.
Remember the internet? That was fun. Used to go on AOL.
It was stationary.
56K. That was the last one because we upgraded to cable internet.
Ooh.
I remember one time I lost.
Cable, or did you go through the
Cable.
the fiber at any point?
Fiber was way later. So I had 56K. I think we had 26.6. Or was it? Yeah, was it 24? I think it's 24. I don't remember. Yeah, dial up. And then one day I log in to AOL, and then I open up AIM, and then I see my friend is online, and I message him, and he doesn't answer. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I see him just away, and I'm like, and then one day I see him, and I ask him, I was like, were you just like leave your computer on? And he's like, I have cable. And I was like, you have what? He's like, cable internet. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's just your internet's on 24/7. And I was like, what? And so then I went home, and I was like, because we had a second phone line, and you'd be online downloading a song, and then a telemarketer would call, and it would knock you offline, and then your download crashes. And then we got cable, and all of a sudden the songs started coming in so fast.
I have a
days.
vivid memory of the only time I heard the dial-up internet sound. It I was pretty young and I only remember it once, but I think that was just
28.8.
rural New Hampshire at the time, where a lot of stuff hadn't progressed. It's crazy how quickly technology changes. Like, I think of my younger sisters who do most of their homeschooling through some sort of online assistance. Like, they will never have remembered a time without the internet, and that was not that long ago.
They won't know what a fax machine is. Like, I think
Unless they need like dental records sent. Like dentist
so now it's a
makes
digital
you
fax.
use
It's called. It's a PDF by email. I was checking out to see if anything broke on the news, because you never know what happens. So I want that acting deputy director to resign or be fired or be charged or something.
We're going to go to Super Chat, so if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? 1 like equals 1 fight, fight, fight. Become a member by going to timcast.com and clicking Join Us, and you can hang out for the members-only call-in show where you as members call in, talk to us on the show, join in. It'll be a lot of fun. Not so family-friendly. In the meantime, we will read your Super Chats. Polly Puree says, or is it Polly Pure? I don't know. It's 2 E's, so I say Puree. Am I first? Indeed, you are first. Congratulations, you've won. Tim is Controlled Opposition says, Trump said, if you don't vote for me, you won't have Israel for very long. I hope he's right. I hope he loses. Not voting Trump this time. I can survive 4 years of Kamala if America's parasite is gone. Super Chatter, dear Super Chatter, I thank you so much for that tweet, because I've been trying to explain to people what Israel derangement syndrome is, and this nails it. The idea that you would actually support Kamala Harris, who is like one of the worst human beings imaginable, with no track record, unappointed, to actually see the United States suffer and the economy fail because you hate Israel so much, is a level of derangement that is hard to exemplify. But in that single super chat, everyone now knows, oh, they're deranged.
Well, I won't steelman that super tweet. Super tweet? Super red. I won't steelman it. I can understand what the resentment is that people are saying foreign countries are taking too much of our tax dollars.
Like Ukraine.
Yeah, like Ukraine, like Israel. I mean, I can understand people saying that. What I always find funny is that the people who say no more foreign war and then also simultaneously say down with Israel, which sounds like your objection is not just no more foreign war. I can understand the resentment, the issue that people take with that. There won't be, I don't want to say there won't be anything left of America if Kamala is elected. It will be a wildly different America where this individual thinks, well, so long as the parasite's gone, I can live with 4 years of Kamala. You might not have much of your own country left after 4 years of another, open border.
Kamala's going to give Israel a blank check.
I'm not sure about that. She's still out there. She doesn't want to call Islamic
give
terrorism.
Israel a blank check.
And Gaza too.
No, like, dude. Kamala is a uniparty establishment candidate. The CIA, FBI, all 17, however many intelligence agencies are going to say, okay, Kamala, we're funding Israel however much money they want.
That much I can understand. She is a war whore and say a military industrial complex tool of the highest order.
Is that in your book? Is this a quote from your book?
No.
Sorry, I cut you off.
For a second, no, I actually thought I thought it said something else on the amateur hour, and bada bing, bada boom. No, I could see that part. But no, I think there might be a rift developing within the Kamala brat party and
disagree.
the Jewish support. I don't. We'll see how it plays out. But I think
Kamala, the rift is only superficial for political reasons right now to earn votes. There is no way the establishment backs off Israel. Donald Trump says he supports Israel in much a very superficial way. He likely will provide them. There is no candidate that's going to abandon Israel. It's just not reality. The CIA candidate is never abandoning Israel. Mm-hmm. They may abandon Netanyahu and demand some change, but the idea that because radical progressives demand of the CIA, dude, you really think that the CIA candidate is going to be like, okay, we're done with Israel?
No, they might just say the market shall provide, and they'll see what is more profitable of a solution. I mean, well, to say not let Israel burn, but rather to say, well, I don't know, funding both sides type thing, or I can't play out a world where there's another economy that would outweigh the laundering that goes on through these types of foreign aid packages. But I could see where that could happen.
What is the argument that the U.S. government would have to stop supporting Israel right now?
It would be the idea of genocide. it would be the idea of some international human rights violations where they say we can no longer support what you're doing in Gaza.
So, what about Protective Edge? The 2014 operation, they call it mowing the lawn when Israel starts bombing Gaza to an extreme degree. This time with October 7th, it's particularly bad.
It's particularly bad.
But we have seen for every couple of years what they refer to as mowing the lawn, where Israel starts bombing Gaza. And then you've got the West Bank, which has got settlements and purchases, and conflict has been ongoing for a long time. I do not see anything happening now where the U.S. deep state would be like, I guess we're wrapping up here. We're done with Israel.
No, I don't think it would be quite that cut and dry, but it would be to the point where I can see a shift in public sentiment saying we're no longer supporting this. And whether you cloak it as we don't support Netanyahu versus we don't support Israel, but we're not supporting this. And I can see that happening. The longer this goes on, and especially if it turns out that, as I firmly believe as well, there is some culpability in how that was allowed to occur in the first place. And then they say, well, this was sort of an opportunistic exploitation of tragedy that could have been averted or at least minimized. I could see the public sentiment shifting a little bit.
I don't understand the simultaneous argument that Israel puppets the United States and it's a parasite in the United States. The Israel derangement people think that Israel controls our policy through AIPAC and things like this.
They certainly there's an influence. You can't deny that.
And why would the U.S. stop giving Israel money?
It becomes a cost-benefit analysis as to whether or not there's other ways that this the military-industrial complex could, I don't know, find other ways to grease their wheels or line their pockets. I mean, things evolve. But
after what are we doing with 70 years of U.S. pro-Israel policy? I do not see anything in modern news and climate anywhere that is significant enough where the U.S. would be like, well, after 4 years, we decided to wrap up the Israel project.
No, I mean, some politicians might say, well, after 70 years, things are no better off than they were 70 years ago, so maybe we need to take a different approach.
But it's intentional. The circumstance in Israel, the argument is that Netanyahu either allows or wants these conflicts to happen. He's funded Hamas, and the U.S. is right behind him, allowing these things to happen for whatever reason. So the arguments towards Israel are just scattershot, garbled nonsense.
Well, you certainly saw, people called Barack Obama sort of the most anti-Israel candidate, and the most aggressive thing he did against Israel was try to overthrow Netanyahu through some of his operatives that were working for the opposition candidate. And I think that's
Netanyahu.
I think that's the same thing you would get with the Kamala Harris presidency, where she would, the biggest criticism of Biden was he literally flew to Israel and embraced Netanyahu. And I think that you might see Kamala Harris be a little more distant with Netanyahu, as we already saw.
So let me get this straight. Let me get this straight.
But I don't think you're going to see any major...
Almighty Antichrist in chat saying I'm wrong. You think that the deep state doesn't want to fund Israel anymore? This is the argument? That the intelligence agencies of the United States are done with funding Israel, and that if Kamala wins, they will likely cut off funding to Israel? Is that what people think? And Trump will keep it going?
I don't think so.
Is that what you think?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think so, but I can see sentiment shifting in a way that I've never seen it shift in my lifetime, because this particular, call it an act of reprisal, has been what it is compared to what it has been in the past.
Has sentiment ever shifted the military-industrial complex?
No, but just the irony is that they're. I guess the argument against why they would not change policy is they are making profit off both ends, like literally giving aid to the victims of the Israeli reprisals, and giving aid to the military.
Even from a strategic standpoint, as Tim's saying, like they still view it as a foothold in the Middle East, America's strongest ally in the Middle East, and they wouldn't give it up for.
So it looks like the military-industrial complex will change their mind. Good luck with that. I'm with Tim. I'm asking, what is it, Almighty Alchemist? So I guess you actually believe that the military-industrial complex is done with funding Israel. So then why would they under Trump fund Israel? If the machine itself, Northrop Grumman, Halliburton, all of these, like they're military contractors overseas. If all of these companies that profit off of expansionist policy, nation building, war, and conflict have decided, we're just done with the Israel project, then it doesn't matter who you vote for. Vote for Trump, doesn't matter. Trump's going to go to them. They're going to say, no, we're not interested in taking those contracts anymore. We'll give you $60 billion. We want Iron Dome defense now. We're not interested. Okay. And then I just don't understand the argument. I don't see anything happening in Israel that is substantially different. You can argue that the scale of death is more. I don't know, man. Go back to all of the wars throughout every decade. Go back to every single operation carried out by Israel. Look at how Egypt's handled it. Israel and the Sinai Peninsula. All of these things. You've got Jordan's involvement, West Bank settlements, Gaza conflict. You've got going back to when Israel pulled out. I don't see anything substantially different. I just literally don't. To where the military-industrial complex goes, that's the end of this operation. In fact, Iran fired missiles into Israel, and the U.S. wants to go to war with Iran. This is the perfect casus belli for the establishment outside of Iran.
But now you're building a good argument for the guy who said, I'd rather take my chances with Kamala than have an administration that wants to go to war with Iran and using Israel as sort of the catalyst.
That's Kamala. When Trump nearly died, the official narrative that popped up a day later was, oh, by the way, Iran was trying to kill Trump. And so the belief is was their initial plan. Trump, if he gets assassinated, they blame Iran for it, and that's the casus belli. Iran. That's how you get all the Trump supporters to get behind war. Nikki Haley becomes the nominee. Then you get Kamala Harris or Nikki Haley, and both want war with Iran. John Bolton wanted war with Iran. The U.S. There was a plan. Who was the military officer who came out in like the late 2000s and said there are 7 nations? Do you remember? I always forget his name.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Iran was one of them, and we've hit Libya, we've hit Syria, all these countries, but Iran's not gone down. We set up military bases in Iraq and Afghanistan, which gives us a pincer strike on Iran, and we've not had the casus belli nor the resources to go into Iran. Iran fires on Israel. Kamala Harris gets elected. We are looking at war with Iran.
Well, hold on, but I'm just the timeline there. When they tried to assassinate Trump and blame it on Iran, Joe Biden hadn't yet pulled out, and I don't think he pulls out if they succeed.
Pull out of what?
Biden hadn't withdrawn yet.
Uh-huh.
So I think the timeline there, I appreciate that they were trying to blame this on Iran in some
Nikki Haley becomes the Republican
nominee.
nominee.
For sure. No, but then I don't think Biden pulls out, so the Kamala factor is not yet in.
I think Biden was always going to pull out, though.
I don't think.
Just being a nominee.
Afghanistan?
Yeah, but this was already after the debate.
No, I'm talking about. Hold on.
But either way, the Biden administration is pro-war. They want war with Iran.
No question.
No
Agreed.
question.
Agreed.
Nikki Haley would be as well. No question. Without Trump, and they say Trump was killed by Iran, Nikki Haley has the next most amount of delegates. The RNC could be in revolt, but they probably would have gone for Nikki Haley, who has the second highest amount of delegates. And then you've got a guarantee whoever gets elected, it's war with Iran. Or at least that's the direction we're going. Why would they back off Israel? Voting for Kamala Harris is the surest way to make sure Israel gets all the money in the world because they want that narrative to go to war with Iran.
I think they might have lost that narrative. Well, the hypothetical, I agree with everything.
Wesley Clark, Luke. There you go. Our change. Wesley Clark. That is correct. He said there were 7 countries the U.S. was planning to go to war with, and we've gone to war with I think it's all but Iran or something. Iraq and Afghanistan surround Iran. The purpose of those was very clearly the U.S. is targeting Iran and has been for a very long time. And we surrounded their country, and we've needed that casus belli. John Bolton wanted it. We never got there. John Bolton said when Trump appointed him, which was a huge mistake, and this is what is this, 2017? Next year we'll be celebrating in Tehran. And I'm like, this guy's nuts. Kamala Harris is the military-industrial complex. They are not going to back off Israel. They're going to dump as much money as they can in that country because they want to use it as staging operations for their war with Iran. They need the territory to control to bring things into the Mediterranean. Joe Biden tried building the pier. What's the pier for in the Gaza? That was a beachhead for the invasion of Gaza. That is support for Israel. They say, oh, we're going to bring in supplies. BS. They want war with Iran, and they want the means to bring in supplies into Israel. They want to secure Gaza so they can have access to the Mediterranean. They're at war with Russia. They want to control the Black Sea and cut them off from the Donbass. They want to move in through Israel, stock up on weapons. That way, when they engage with Iran, they've got the Persian Gulf, they've got the Mediterranean, they've got multiple attack points, Iran and Afghanistan.
I guess your idea that Kamala will invade Iran kind of clashes with the Democrats that we currently understand who follow more of a policy of appeasement, right? And President Obama famously made the nuclear deal with Iran. John Kerry was right there. Hillary Clinton was right there. They all pursued this idea that they were trying to neutralize Iran as a nuclear threat, but certainly not ready to go to war.
Stuxnet. That was Obama.
Stuxnet, what's that?
That was when the U.S. and Israel under Obama blew up Iranian nuclear centrifuges with one of the most sophisticated cyber attacks in history. A direct attack on Iranian infrastructure from the United States.
So I'd
In
say that
tandem
that's
with
more
Israel.
of a neutralizing force than open war.
I mean, the only reason we didn't get war at that point was because Iran didn't declare it. But Stuxnet, it's an insane move. They said, let's infect every machine on the planet until this thing finds Iranian nuclear centrifuges and then blows them up. And it did. And it was the U.S. and Israel who did it. And that was under Obama.
Well, and Trump certainly launched the airstrike against Soleimani, which was also
Yes, he did.
very provocative. But it
Yep.
didn't
And that's why I'm
necessarily-
saying I don't get the argument. It doesn't matter who you vote for. The military-industrial complex wants this war to happen. Trump is slightly your better bet. We got no new wars under Donald Trump. This is probably why the military-industrial complex hates him so much. But we'll move on to other super chats because otherwise we'll talk about Israel forever. But all right, here Clint Torres is back. Howdy, people. Tim, I get what you're saying regarding the trans boxer in the Olympics, but you're wrong. These female athletes shouldn't have to give up their once every 4 years or once in a lifetime chance to compete at the highest level to make a statement that men fighting women is wrong. Any man who justifies a man fighting a woman, be it her choice or not, completely lacks the noble rooster spirit you have spoken of in the past. The alternative then is, because there's there's two males, I think, that are boxing in the Olympics against women. Then, like, imagine being a woman. It's like, this is your chance at the Olympics. You can fight a male or you can bow out. Either way, you've lost. My view is you're already not participating in the Olympics. They're basically putting on an exhibition match where you're likely going to lose. The male fighter is actually the favorite in the betting market. Surprise, surprise. It's minus 150 because everyone's going to bet on the male to win against the female. The male had previously been disqualified. I think 2 males disqualified from the world championships for being male and can't fight against women. But the Olympics have allowed them to fight. So if it were me, and that's just me, and I was in the Olympics as a boxer, and they said, you're going to box. Like if I was a woman and said, you're going to box a guy, I'd say, okay. I'd put my hands behind my back. And when they hit the ring, I'd clench my jaw, tighten my abs, and I'd stand there and I would keep my hands behind my back.
I just have a question, though. Is the boxer allowed punching the her penis? Like below the belt? Can what happens?
Below the belt is not allowed in boxing.
Look, I'm trying to work a joke in there somewhere. We're literally what stage?
The real question is chest shots. Because I do believe that in female boxing, there's some restriction on punching in the chest, in the breasts. So that may actually be an interesting factor. I mean, outright, let's just consider this. The fact that in women's boxing, there is a sensitive area in the breast that has, I believe there's restrictions. You're not allowed to strike. In boxing, you can hit in the chest. It doesn't affect guys the same way. So that's an advantage for the male competitor. But I mean, I suppose to his point, he's saying she should just fight. And my point is I'd boycott. I'd say no.
Apparently, it's an unwritten rule among female boxers, but there's no official rule against it. And then also in some amateur boxing leagues, women are allowed to wear protective chest plates.
So this is an obvious advantage for a male boxing a female, that they do not have a sensitive area on their chest the way women do for boxing.
Are these transgender or are these the intersex, the clinical?
No, these are male XY chromosome, and I don't know that they're actually trans. This is an important distinction. The story did not say they were trans.
I don't know what trans means. The XY chromosome. They're not that.
They are
that
male.
Rare
They are
genetic disorder.
XY chromosome males. Their sex test came back as XY. That's what the news report said.
Sex tests. Are they? Were they born with
XY?
Yeah.
XY.
Were they born with like female genitalia?
The news report said these are XY males and they were disqualified. That's all it says.
Mm-hmm.
So all that matters is the issue is they are not listed as transgender competitors. That was not what Reuters or any of these other articles said about it. They said they are she, her. They used she and her pronouns for them and said that they listed themselves as female. Look, my understanding is that a gold medal in the Olympics is $30,000. This one guy's from Algeria. What's the GDP of Algeria?
It's by country. Like America gives $30,000 to our gold, but
okay.
but
Either way,
hypothetically,
you want to win. The gold medal's worth $1,000, so you're going to get one of those, right? I'm telling you, we're going to see countries be like, look, we just want to win, and we're going to win by the rules, whatever the rules may be. And so if they send a male to box females, that's what you get.
I'm just reading one article where it says everyone competing in the women's category is complying with eligibility criteria. Quote, they are women in their passports, and it's stated that is the case, and they are female.
Yep.
What are we doing to ensure by way of like that there's not just running mails and falsifying documents from countries where reliability on documents is questionable at best in general.
I don't know.
This almost sounds like
it seems like it's a bit of a test run because didn't they not allow?
Pretty sure this guy boxed in 2020 in the Olympics. This male
Against women or?
against women. Yeah, there's a photo of it. Well, let's read some more. We got Berenstein Wolf says, I've been trying to figure out how to reach you in Pop Culture Crisis. There's some more bad Mr. B stuff to come, and I was witness to and victim of it. I was a contestant for Beast Games. I can back up everything I say. I've got receipts and additional witnesses. Interesting. Is that a story that you'd be interested in looking into?
Well, Chris Bertman's been our one covering it, but I can direct.
How can we get in touch with it? It's always hard to
He's Man of Bird on Twitter. He's been covering it, like this whole situation for Scanner.
So tweet X post at Man of Bert and say Hannah
DM's
Claire.
open.
Yeah, or his DM's
Hopefully.
open.
I'll text him right now.
Say Hannah Claire told you to message him and that he has to respond now because, those are the rules. John Leroy says Republicans should respond to weird with the same energy as your boos mean nothing because I've seen what makes you cheer. I'm good with being weird. I agree, and they're doing half of that, but they're very much being like, you're calling me weird. Look what you do. You're weird. And they don't care that you're calling them weird. They say, keep Austin weird, keep Portland weird. They like being called weird. So when you're like, you're calling me weird, here's a picture of you. They're like, that's what I did. It's like there's this picture of me with no hat on and I have no hair. I am indeed bald. And then they post it like they're making fun of me. I'm like, my guy, that's a picture I took of myself and posted on the internet.
What?
Like, it's a selfie of me with no hat. I posted, I went online, I said, took a picture of myself and I posted it online. And they're like,
Very
haha.
transparent of you.
But it's I understand that sometimes you take someone's screenshot and mock them for it, but they're like, haha, look, your hat's off. And I was like, yeah, I posted that. Like I've posted that picture. Okay. When you go to the leftists, you say you're weird. They go, we know that, but we're pissing you off, and you're getting triggered and trolled by it, so they're enjoying it. So that's why when I made that bunny thing about Trump, they really went nuts on responding. This is the funniest thing. I wrote, Trump saying, the world was cruel to you, but now you have Trump and he's hugging the bunny. And the posters being like, wow, you're so weird. I respond to one guy and I'd be like, appreciate it. And they go, that's a weird response. And I'm like, dude, doubling down doesn't change the fact I enjoy not being status quo, normal, whatever. We're going to continue to do abnormal things. Call it whatever you want. Republicans got to roll with it.
That rabbit did look delicious in the picture, by the way.
And then apparently the Timcast crew, my brother made it a video, and then Carter added dramatic music to it. And so now it's like Trump, he's moving and he's like putting his head down and there's music playing.
I think you have a child program branch growing out pretty quickly.
Well, I told people to add onto the story. And so a bunch of people started making their own versions and tweeting in response of like, one is Trump running with the sword and the rabbit's charging in behind him. And then, it's good fun.
Amazing.
Yeah. Trump and the giant rabbit, a tale for all children. Let's go. Richard Coffey says, my first super chat, check out K-Flay Weirdo. I like K-Flay. High Enough. That's a good song, isn't it? Rich C says, we need to replace the label of progressive and only use the word degenerate to label them. Perhaps. Omega Rosetsu says, Tim, I predicted every election since 1984, and the only one I got wrong was 2020 because of the shadow campaign. I'm willing to say Trump 2024. That proves it!
The real Nostradamus.
How old is this person? The person was born. No, it's okay. Born in 1989.
What have we here? Tyler McFarland says, I think people need to spread the clip of Kamala calling 18 to 24-year-olds stupid again. Remember that?
It's an easy rebuffed video clip. I don't think that. What was the best one recently? Recycle the media talking about how incompetent and detested Kamala Harris is. What we're witnessing with her right now, it's like it's straight out of 1984. Everybody was saying that she's unlikable, unliked, unelectable, and like that, within a week, the media said she's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Play Tulsi destroying her at the debate.
Yeah, that's
this is an important one. By Victor says, I live in California. My vote doesn't count. If illegals are able to vote in Arizona, do you recommend getting a lot of people to vote in Arizona? The only reason your vote doesn't count in California is because you don't vote. It is the greatest effort of propaganda ever to tell people in California that are conservative, what's the point of voting? You're going to lose anyway. In AOC's district, if every single conservative person voted, she would lose. And she would lose by like 20%. She gets around 100 or so thousand votes, like 120 or something. What is it, 117 maybe? Might be 150. And her district is around, I think, like 180 to 200,000 conservative-leaning people. They just don't vote. And because they don't vote, they don't win.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there is a reason that Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, is the only Democrat in that area. It's because Democrats decided that was something that they wanted to try and win, right? And he's been reelected, I think, at least twice. It's a solidly red state in many other aspects. The idea that these are just completely lost territories because, the presidency is going to go one way is kind of false thinking. There are so many other people on the ticket that you should turn out for.
Yeah, Justin, but when was there ever a Republican that was competitive in California? It's pretty.
But they send Republican senators. They send Republicans to Congress. I mean,
they had a Republican governor.
Republican congressman, but not.
That's what I mean. Like, maybe you might not get Trump elected from California, but he's not the only race this year.
Right.
Justin Condon says, Tim, you have avoided the protests in D.C. and the 24th like the plague. Tonight you said protests months ago. It was days ago. I wasn't talking about in D.C. I said there's unrest across the country over Israel, like at all these different universities. Avoided the protests in D.C. like the plague. Like, what do you mean? Am I supposed to go there? Not that far away. I don't know.
I thought we did talk about them because I remember talking about the flag, the flag
Union
being
Station,
taken down, and we also talked about the fact that Alad was on the ground there.
And we talked about how the problem is they stole the flag from the public and burned it down, and like that. And I made the point that it's funny that people like don't watch the show, and then they're like, "Why didn't you talk about thing?" My favorite, however, is when the title of the video. Like we have an episode and it's like, Donald Trump, questions this thing. And then it's an hour into the show and someone super chats, you guys need to talk about title of video. And I'm like, what? That's the title of the video. It's the first thing we talked about. So, yeah, I mentioned like burning the American flag, I think is fine. Trump said that, if you burn the American flag, you should get a year in jail. You should get a year in jail. And my point is if it's in the context of stealing public property and setting a fire in public, completely agree. If it's in the context of buying an American flag for yourself, going into your own fire pit on your property and having a fire in a safe manner, absolutely not. However, I think Trump's context is mostly that they tore down an American flag from public property and then burned it in the street.
Federal property.
Federal property, right. And so a year in jail for that, I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
He could probably make that happen.
Absolutely. Destruction of federal property, I think already, I'm pretty sure there's already a law in the book saying you go to prison for that. And then the left argues, we're allowed to burn the American flag, man, it's free speech.
Yeah, you're allowed to burn the American flag, and if you burn tire marks on a LGBT flag on the street.
You are not allowed to burn the American flag unless you own it. That's the point. So they steal the flag from the federal property, destroy it. The law they broke, theft of public property, destruction of public property, starting a fire in public, which is probably endangering the public, reckless endangerment. And you're dealing, that's probably 5 years in prison right off the bat. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, smash the like button. Head over to timcast.com, click join us. Become a member over at timcast.com because we're going to have that members-only call-in show coming up in just a few minutes. You don't want to miss it, where you as members get to call in and talk to us and join us and our guests. It's not so family-friendly. So it's, the kids, time to go to bed. You get to school night. And then we're going to talk about some awful things in the media. Should be fun. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL everywhere. You can follow me personally at Timcast on X and Instagram. Charlie, do you want to shout anything out?
Yep. Kamala Harris in the White House, Amateur Hour, still for sale. Get it. If you can't find it on Amazon, try some of the other sites.
Did anybody think that you had just written it recently?
Yes, actually, I did do an interview where they're like, I see that you wrote a preview of what's going on today. And I was like, no, I wrote that in January 2023, where I examined what it would look like when Biden stepped down. It's scary.
Alan Lichtman's going to hit you up.
Yeah. It scarily came true. It's very surreal at this point, but do check it out. As we go into this election, it's important to know more about Kamala Harris than just hashtag word salad, hashtag Willie Brown. It'll give you all the facts that you need to know.
Right on.
VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com, the Viva Frei on Twitter, and Viva Frei on Rumble. I'll be back in the free state. I'm back in the free country now, at least, but I'll get back to the free state of Florida by the end of the week and back to my home studio.
Right on.
was good to be here again. You can find me at Shane Cashman everywhere. The show is Tales from the Inverted World on YouTube after last night's IRL bump. We're almost at 45,000 subscribers. So make it happen. We go live every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see you there.
I'm glad all of you could join us tonight. I think it's been really interesting. I'm Hannah Claire Brimwell. I'm a writer for scnr.com. That's Scanner News. Follow our work at Timcast News on the internet. I'm also on the internet at Hannah Claire B on X and at hannahclaire.b on Instagram. Thanks for everything you guys do. Have a good night.
We'll see you all over at timcast.com in about 1 minute. Thanks for hanging out.